6:59. Wait. Oh, it's 7 o'clock.
Oh, did we get a sign-in sheet?
We don't have a sign-in sheet, but we should have a sign-in sheet.
Hey, Raj, you got a blank piece of paper in there? You can just put up there. Okay.
Oh.
We'll wait till he comes back.
It's good that we brought Raj.
Good thing what?
We brought Raj.
For sure.
Right.
Minute. Oh, 15 seconds. Well, I'm not driving it, but I haven't managed to get rid of it. No, it's down, it's back here.
Raj is coming back with a sign-up sheet, so at some point during the evening, if we could,
That's all right.
sign-up sheet.
Name and address or something.
We're just here for the good
So at some point during the evening, we could all sign in. It's 7 o'clock, so we'll start, oh, Melody's not here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is
Read
anybody?
the,
No, that's why he's recording.
Oh, yeah.
How's that?
Excellent.
yeah, but we read the announcement.
I don't have
which
the
we don't
announcement.
have.
Makes it harder.
Does make it
Oh, yeah, I
hard.
can do that.
You can?
I think so, look it up. Okay.
You have it? Where are you gonna get it?
Online?
From the TNG?
No.
No, it was probably in,
You put that on the website? They give the
Actually,
notice,
is this
they
it?
put The notice?
is that the hearing
Yeah,
notice?
that's the one.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
That's the email that came out about it.
Yeah.
Can we read it?
That's sort of it.
Oh, that's not the
Uh,
official note.
It is? Well, this is sort of a describing it.
on the calendar.
Let's see if it's the same one. Okay, who would like to read that? Sarah?
Here, I'll read it, sure. Okay. All right, this is the Planning Board, Town of West Boylston, Notice of Public Hearing, Proposed Changes to Zoning Bylaws. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held on Monday, September 24th, 2018, at 7 PM at the West Boylston Town Hall, 140 Worcester Street, West Boylston, Mass., in Board Meeting Room, first floor, to consider changes to the zoning bylaws to regulate adult-use marijuana facilities. Any interested person is invited to attend this meeting, at which time you will be given the opportunity to be heard. Copies of the draft adult-use marijuana bylaw can be viewed on the town's website at westboylstonmass.gov and is also available for inspection in the town clerk's office, whose hours are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 8 AM to 4 PM, Wednesday, 9 AM to 7 PM, and Friday, 8 AM to 2 PM.
Thank you. Before we start, I'd just like to lay the groundwork a little bit. In 2016, the voters of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts voted to allow adult use marijuana. At our town meeting in 2017, it was put before the town meeting to ban adult use marijuana facilities in town, and that was rejected, voted down by the town. So the next town meeting, which was earlier this year, the spring town meeting, we voted affirmative to have a temporary moratorium on such facilities to give the town time to put together some regulations about the placement and rules around what type of marijuana establishments would be established in town. And that's what we're doing tonight. We had a subcommittee in town craft a zoning bylaw, and so that's what tonight's public hearing is about, to review that bylaw, get comments from the public, answer any questions you may have. And this bylaw, then, in its final form, will be put before town meeting, next month's town meeting, for voting by the public. Any other comments from other board members before we start?
Someone's doing minutes?
Well,
We're
we've
gonna
been
watch the
recording
video.
the movie. YouTube is doing the minutes.
Would you like 2 minutes?
I'll keep track of stuff.
Okay.
We're required.
Let me just introduce this document also. This is the document that's been on the website for a while, and this is the proposed zoning bylaw. Most of the first few pages are definitions of things, definition of terms that are used in the bylaw. We're not going to really go over those. The most important part of this document is on page 4, where there's a table of different types of marijuana establishments. And then in the table across the top, you'll see the various zoning districts in town. So you'll notice here that the column 1 is single residence districts. Under this zoning bylaw, no marijuana establishments would be allowed in that zone. Neither would they be allowed in general residence districts. Notice that they would be allowed in business districts, as noted in column 3, industrial districts, not in conservation districts, but they would be allowed in commercial and limited industrial districts. Also notice that there are different types of establishments, and this zoning bylaw that we're proposing does allow all those different types of establishments in town, except for number 6, which is the social consumption establishment, the social clubs. We're proposing that those not be allowed anywhere in town.
You want to elaborate a little bit?
I'm sorry?
You want to elaborate?
Well, they're sort of self-explanatory. As you can see in the earlier pages, retail sale of marijuana and marijuana products and accessories, a typical retail store, the wording of the bylaw will regulate how close those can be to things like parks and schools, et cetera. Other rules about what types of buildings they're allowed in, et cetera. Independent testing laboratory, marijuana product manufacturer. Somebody comment on that, exactly what that, an example of that one would be? Manufacturer. Isn't that a cultivator? Because isn't there also a cultivator, indoor cultivation and outdoor cultivation? That would just be a factory?
I believe that making the,
Okay, there is a definition for that. An
Right,
entity
there.
licensed to obtain, manufacture, process and package marijuana and
Yep.
marijuana product. And to transfer this product to other marijuana establishments, but not to consumers.
Right. So, then the indoor and outdoor cultivators, we're not proposing allowing any social clubs. And then there's also the medical marijuana treatment center, including or excluding dispensing retail. And then a third-party marijuana transporter. So some of these establishments would involve the public going to purchase products, and some wouldn't. Some would just be a industrial sort of establishment. The manufacturer, the cultivator, or transporter, those folks would not be involved in dealing with the public at all. Have you folks read through this? Anybody have questions about this, concerns, yay or nay? Sir?
I just have a question in that,
Actually, could I,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
name and
David
address?
Carr, 49 Carroll Drive. Previously, the last meeting I went to, there was a map that was put up that had areas that the marijuana could be sold in. It was drawn out on the map, but, and here it says, like, conservation districts. Well, in the map, it showed that, I don't remember what, up by the,
Lawrence Street.
recycling, it's that whole area, but most of that area is conservation land.
It's a conservation and limited industrial land, the commercial and limited industrial land. That,
But the map showed that that was an area that it was allowed. So, to me, that's contradicting what,
What meeting did you attend that had a map?
that was the previous one about the bylaw.
Well, the idea of, the conservation district is a separate zoning district, and it's located where the jail is, down by Tivnan Drive on the southern part of town. There is an actual conservation district, so that's what's being referenced. So,
So that's,
do you want the answer, or, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
so it's, the conservation district is a separate district that is at the southern end of town, You're talking about the commercial industrial district, which is at the northern end of town. The use up there is property owned by the DCR, so it's conservation land, but it's not a conservation district. The conservation district is in the southern part of town.
Thank you, Vinnie.
I have a question.
And your name, please?
Sorry, Mike Boston, 152 Gale Street.
152?
So, this house 500 feet, and I wonder what the rationale of 500, is 1,000 a large difference, or, I don't know, what was the thought process?
Well, we're geographically a fairly small town, and a lot of the distances from other places, like schools and things like that, once you increase it to 1,000 or 1,500, you're pretty much excluding it from everywhere in town. So that's why we had chosen 500 feet as something reasonable, which would allow the establishments in the areas that you'd expect, the strip malls or places along Route 12, et cetera, but yet not allow it to be in other places that were too close to playgrounds or schools.
If we ended up in a situation where there was some odd triangulation and they could put it right in between, is there some process where we could say no?
If you could meet the requirement of 500 feet, but it was really,
Really a bizarre spot, yeah, you know what I mean?
They do have to
Have
do
we,
the
it's-
site
have we
plan.
mapped these? That's one of the questions I have. We got this list of sites that you can't be a certain distance away from. Have we mapped those so that we can actually see where the zones that
we
we're
had?
proposing are and then where these setbacks
what
are?
was the map that CMRPC drew for us?
I don't know. Did they?
They did.
All right.
Do we still have that upstairs?
Anita, do you recall if they,
Remember that?
I think they needed to change it.
They did need to change it, there were some improvements that needed to be made, that was posted on the website, but.
As I recall.
Was that driven to 500 feet, or designed to 500 feet?
I don't recall if it was 300 or 500 feet.
500.
And also to add on to, state minimum requirement is 500 feet, right? That's why the state Canopy Control Commission recommends at least 500 feet.
Yeah, it's at least.
But the
those
town
are
can,
1,000.
town can choose to increase,
Yeah.
but we are,
But they would have to come before us anyway for special permit, so if it wound up in a bizarre place that happened to meet that requirement, I don't think that would happen, but it's a decent question. The planning board would still refuse that and say, yeah, find some other
I was gonna
place.
say, well, we did go through, we didn't map it intensively, we didn't map every point in town, but just a basic rudimentary look at the map, didn't show any areas like that. I mean, you'd have to have such a perfect storm, oh, I found this spot right here, and somebody willing to sell it to me, and it's zoned commercial, and, yeah, it's very, okay.
So is that map coming from CMRPC at some point? Because I didn't see it on the town website. You know, if they've been in the process of doing this, we should probably see it.
We had the map, but didn't they add daycare centers and we never got the, we
Well,
never,
there was one mistake in it where they transposed, I think, the playground, there was a playground they hadn't taken into consideration, and there was another area that didn't make any sense to us, so they were gonna come back with
I don't
corrections.
recall if we ever got that, but yes.
No, we
That would be helpful for town
We
meeting.
will ask
I
them
mean,
to
that-
get us a map.
It would be helpful in town meeting.
we didn't, we did not get any map.
I don't think we got the.
We did not get the
update.
revised map.
Nope.
Dave Feeny, 86 Sterling Street. On your table here on page 4, I'm just curious, number 8, third-party marijuana transporter. I don't see any kind of a definition or anything, so what is a third-party marijuana transporter? It's on number 8.
Did we cover that?
It's from the marijuana cultivation. Marijuana cultivations, somebody is growing a marijuana. So if they have to take the marijuana from one facility, from the, say, suppose in Hartwell Street, to Worcester, some stores, they are called the transporters.
Well, marijuana transporter or distribution facility is defined
Is defined, yeah.
on page 2, and that's next to the last item.
Yeah, so that's,
So they do have to have a license to transport. It's there on the page too.
So that's, I know, it says that a transporter or distribution facility, blah, blah, blah. It goes through, that is licensed to purchase, do all these things, but not to consumers. A marijuana transporter may be an existing licensee transporter or a third-party transporter. But it doesn't say what a third-party transporter is.
Somebody who transports but isn't involved in any of those previous activities.
I wonder if
We
it'd be
should
like UPS or
just-
something.
why don't we add
We'll
another
get the
definition?
clarification, I guess.
Or add so,
To define third party.
define what it is. I mean, that's just so, I mean, if the question comes up now, it's better, we can
Right.
change it, so let's just add a definition.
And the state has many regulations about all of this, which the town does not get involved in since we're concerned with the zoning portion of it, but they have many other regulations which will,
Out of curiosity, if there are, say, like a warehouse, say, someone in the industrial zone had a warehouse full of stuff, right?
Sure.
Transporting it. Does the town put a cap on the amount they can store there? Or the state probably does, I would hope, I don't know that.
No,
I think so.
they do not. They have to keep it in a safe.
I don't know,
It would, I mean, are you concerned about the size of the building or the amount of,
Those things will be regulated by the state, not,
That's
Not
not,
the
yeah,
town.
it must be something from the state.
well, but they, when they get their permit to operate, they would have a certain size that their capacity is based on. And as long as they're within that, and the board has reviewed it and it's gone through, it has to get approval from the state as well before, I think the board would review anything.
We would have, say, or the town would have.
There'd be a public hearing.
Yes.
We'd be like, no.
yes, for any facility that goes into town, thered be a planning board public hearing about that particular facility. So that specific questions about that building or that establishment could be asked of the person who's putting it in. Is there somebody else with a question? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions.
Your name, please?
Elisa Wellington, 636 Malden Street.
Okay.
When I'm looking on page 4 for the schedule of use regulations, I'm wondering what other towns in central Massachusetts allow marijuana establishments in all their zoning districts except single residence and general residence, the way we're proposing to do here.
It's a good question. Don't know off the top of my head. Are you concerned that we're
Well,
allowing
the
it in too many
papers,
zones?
the articles I've been reading in the paper lately show that towns like Charlton are limiting it to industrial
Which
districts,
town did we go?
zoning districts.
Even retail?
Yes, and, when I was on the planning board for 15 years, my recollection is that when we had a use that was not, shall we say, what we wanted to promote, and I don't think we want to promote marijuana use because if you read the paper, St. John's School was just addressed by a medical doctor, family physician, and addiction specialist who said that 17% of those who start using marijuana as adolescents develop addiction. For teens who use marijuana every day, the addiction rate is 30 to 50%. And this article has a lot of, I make copies for everybody. But I don't think we need to, we should think that marijuana, oh, it's just this harmless piece of candy, you know. It does have negative implications, especially on teenagers. So when we had
And it is illegal for teenagers too.
I know, but we all know that smoking is too, and many of them smoke, right?
I understand.
I mean, it's very hard to enforce these laws. And so, my feeling is that when I was on the planning board, when we had a use that wasn't something we were dying to have, like adult entertainment, we would only allow it in the industrial zone. And that limited the access to it and, you know, So I don't understand why we're putting it in so many parts of town. And I had hoped, or allowing it in so many parts of town, and I had thought you'd have a map of the whole town with the zoning districts, so we could see a highlighted areas where it will be allowed. That would have been much more helpful than to just talking about these zoning districts, because I don't think most people here know where the business zoning districts are.
That's a,
And when I looked at it, I could see that the business zoning district would allow it near Pinecroft Dairy. It would allow it near the Old Stone Church. It would allow it over in Oakdale. It's not just, the industrial area is huge, and of course, the jail is surrounded by areas that will allow marijuana establishments. It's totally surrounded according to this bylaw.
I thought that was the conservation district. Yeah, so that's.
No,
not- So that's not allowed.
Industrial.
We just established that.
no, but it's purple. It's industrial. Look at the zoning map.
I don't,
It's got this on here.
didn't you just say we didn't produce this?
No, I thought in the
We have a
conservation
regular
district,
zoning map.
it's not, so on the land that is
The
this,
jail
that is the
area
jail.
is the conservation area.
Yes, yep.
But all the area around the jail is zoned industrial. And that's over where Briarwood is,
Yeah,
it's
all that.
where Hillside Village is, it's where Angel
all
Brook
this,
is.
that's all,
So
Yep.
I just question
yes,
how,
the land under the jail is not allowed for marijuana per this bylaw, but most of the areas around it, there's some residents over on Shrewsbury Street where it would not be allowed, but, the town property on Tivnan Drive, it would not be allowed, but everywhere else in that area, yes, it would.
so it seems to
But down
me
here
you
in the
need to
industrial
limit
park.
it either to industrial or resident, or commercial business. Because usually when you create a zoning bylaw that relates to a use you're really not dying to have, you make it as strict as possible to start with. And then if that works out, you expand it, or you make it less strict. But if you start out letting it go as many places as this bylaw will allow, you can't pull back. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, I think your assumption is that it's a use that is not desirable or extremely
Well, I
desirable.
don't think it's something the
Well,
town
but-
wants to promote if you
well,
read these articles.
But I think what the situation is that that's your assumption from the marijuana committee, what was discussed at the marijuana committee. Is this something that the town wants to encourage?
No, the one thing is, we are limiting only 2 stores, only
Yes.
2 establishments.
Yes, that's a
Two,
good point.
yeah, that's all.
And that's what
So-
Charlton did too.
Yes, so when you look at it, if you say that daycare, place of worship, library, park, playgrounds, if you eliminate all these places, mostly Shrewsbury Street, Hartwell Street. Route 12, you have all the, how
Well,
many,
that's why it
how
would have
many,
been good to have a map showing
how
that.
many empty spaces are there to put a marijuana stores?
I mean, a
Even
retail,
if they want to put it, they cannot put more than two licenses.
and common sense would dictate if you wanted to put in a retail establishment, it would probably be in a place where people went past, someplace on Route 12 probably. I don't know if you'd find too many people interested in putting a retail establishment over by the jail, somewhere down on Shrewsbury Street. They'd probably want to put it on Route 12
Well,
somewhere.
the visitors to the jail might
Well,
be
that's-
customers. Strong
they probably have
demand.
their own supply, yeah.
And my last question
Yeah,
is, it relates to the zoning that you're proposing. We had a meeting a few weeks ago that I came to on the village district zoning that
Yep.
you're also proposing, I believe for the upcoming town meeting. And, if that passes in the area down by Darby's, and again, you don't have a map to look at where it is, but if, that area proposed in the village district zone, would that also be an area where marijuana stores would be allowed?
Well, that's
It's not going to go to this town meeting,
Oh,
number
that's,
one.
that's for next
We
time.
don't know it will pass. And also, even if it passes, then we have to go again modify this bylaw. At this time, there are so many years.
Because it's not in the grid now.
Because there is no such
Village,
thing.
Village Center District would be at the Springtown meeting if we
Because
get
that's
that far.
partly zoned business right now.
Yeah,
But
you
also
have a-
residential, so I don't know,
Yeah.
Right,
I don't know how it would
general
go.
residence
Yeah.
and-
But you're also right in between, the school.
The library, the
And
churches.
the
Right.
churches.
Church.
But does the, where's the 500 feet? I don't think 500 feet hits that area. Does the school, when you say schools, is that the actual school or is that the fields that the kids use? Does it include?
Playgrounds, right.
Right,
Playgrounds.
Is that the
playgrounds,
definition?
includes playgrounds, right,
Okay.
yeah.
And then
So it
some-
includes playgrounds, so that might,
Yeah.
And the library's there.
you wanna pull that up again? You've got your distances, but
I
it
don't
would
know
be,
distance on
I know
that.
it'd be close, so.
I don't know distance
So
on
your
there.
suggestion is interesting about limiting the zones.
I think
Which-
that's
which
why I
ones-
asked
which
how
ones-
many other
which
towns
ones-
are doing what you're doing and having it
It's-
both in industrial and business zones, and how many just limit it to one of those zones.
I think you'll find a variety of, from the towns that we saw, that's not a complete study. There's a different scheme in every town, pretty much, about what type of establishments they're allowing and what zones they allow them in. Some are very liberal about it, and some are more constricted.
Well, CMRPC, Central Mass Regional
Right.
Planning Agency, they ought to be able to answer that question.
So I think what was proposed is in the limited industrial, commercial limited industrial, which is the northwest corner of town. What was the basis for including that? Because that's not really a retail center.
It's not.
It's on the north side of I-190 is what we're referring to, and why would we want to include that? That's the question.
Well, it's limited industrial too. so
Yes,
You
commercial.
wanna have a manufacturer.
Well, yeah, a cultivator or manufacturer could have a facility there.
go up to-
I think your concern is mostly about retail establishments,
yeah.
correct? Yeah. I don't think there's any particular thinking about it, except we wanted to exclude the residence areas.
Yeah, I think that mostly that's what the drive was, to keep the residential areas out. But, I mean, depends on how people feel about there's not much going on up there. I think it would be a pretty benign place for like a manufacturer to be.
Because they've got good road access and,
Yeah, I mean, there's nobody to bother, except for the hazardous treatment place, but that's too bad.
Yeah.
yeah, and there is,
Recycling center.
and there is
Recycling
interest
center,
from
recycling,
people
sorry.
about putting establishments in West Boylston, and we do get money from this. We do get 3%, 3%
Well, that's at
sales
the meeting.
tax. Sir?
So I'll just give you my vote, Chris Bergman, 340 Goodale Street. I just, on the revenue piece, top of page. Community host agreement, it says that you would charge the revenue sharing agreements, including stipulations of possibility between parties paying up to 3%.
Right.
Host agreement, so
Where,
what was that?
were you reading, what page?
Right at the top of page three,
Page three.
community host agreement.
Was that the definition?
Two questions on that, basically, is that the most that we are permitted
Yes,
to charge as a community host agreement? Three?
I believe so.
And, okay, and would that, also would that open the, or give the, planning board the authority to negotiate down from that? Should a, producer or retailer come in and, opt to say, we don't want.
I don't think that's negotiable, Ann, can you?
I don't think that's a
Ann,
planning
can you
board
help us on
function.
that? The 3%, yes.
The community host agreement is an agreement that's established with the Board of Selectmen, not the planning board, although I'm sure it would be in conjunction with the planning board. But the most that a community can charge is 3%. However, we're getting a lot of very strong guidance language from the state that says that what we're asking for in terms of mitigation monies back to the town needs to be defended very credibly to justify what we're charging, because it needs to reflect the costs for the community of providing proper organization, administration, and oversight of these businesses in our community. We can't just choose to do 3%. We have to provide a number that we feel is justified based on additional police patrol, changes in traffic structure, whatever, that would be as a result of having these businesses in our town. It's also a very hard thing to do because when we're in the process of negotiating the community host agreement, we don't know what their annual revenues are going to be. And it exceeds 3% of their annual revenue.
And note that this 3% is not the same as the 3% sales tax. We're talking two different things here.
Okay, so the sales tax.
Sales tax is collected by the state and then distributed to the town.
Okay.
And that's separate from any additional monies that we can collect due to increased costs. We can't collect any money in addition to any increased costs we have. In other words, does it cost more money for police or fire or whatever in town? If there are expenses like that, we can negotiate that amount of money in the community host agreement, but that's totally separate from the sales tax.
I don't wanna get into a contest about, revenue, so let me understand, so we can charge a restaurant an additional tax in this town for, the purposes of, I don't even know what we use the revenue for, but if there is, we do have the ability, the state gives us the ability to charge a surtax, have restaurants charge a surtax for a bill, but we can't do that with the marijuana stuff.
No, we can, but not within the guidelines of the community host agreement. You'll see on the October 15th town meeting warrant that the selectmen have chosen to put a separate article that asks the voters to authorize establishing a 3% sales tax on their retail sales.
Okay.
That's different from the community host agreement, above and beyond the community host agreement.
Were you speaking of the meals tax, or are you
Right,
speaking?
yes.
Yeah, well, which is how much?
I don't know what it is, it's like 1.5%.
Do we collect that in town? We collect
Oh,
a
yeah.
meals, a local meals tax?
Yeah.
But it can't be more, it can't be up to 3% though.
No, but I'm saying,
It's less.
but I just wanna make sure that we can get something,
Well, yeah, that's hope,
What's that?
I said if we play our cards right, we can get 6%.
6%,
yeah,
Thanks.
well, yeah.
Kate Boston, 152 Goodell Street. So, do we do anything considered to like not expose marijuana too much to our children? Because I'm just worried about if we put it on like the retail store, right, Route 12, and it's like, the store is there, and every time we drive past it,
Well,
it's like,
There are state regulations about signs, which we don't have a copy of here, but you can't display pictures of the product on the sign. There's limits about the size of the sign, which are local, mostly local limits on sizes of signs. You can't have marijuana on display for the public to see. These are all state regulations, and you have to be 21 to enter the store. So it's not like there's gonna be big arrows, blinking arrows, and a big joint on the sign out in front of the store.
that's what,
I know,
I picture, I was
Right,
like,
right.
No marijuana.
I did check.
No marijuana leaves in neon.
Yeah, right, yeah. No, that's a good concern,
yeah.
and the state is certainly aware of that, and that's why our zoning bylaw also includes the distances from places where kids spend a lot of time.
As far as you know, are there any operating establishments now?
I
In
don't
other
think
words,
so.
does the CCC, have they issued any licenses? Because everything that I've read so far, it seems like it's wishy-washy. They come up with a proposal, and then like a week later or 2 weeks later, they change the whole concept of it. So it seems to me as though everything that I've read so far, from the CCC, it seems like they really still don't have a good grasp of what's going on. It seems like it's gonna take, because there was, back last year, when Raj and I went to a meeting at Worcester State College for the CCC, there was specific guidelines as far as when this was gonna be done, when that was gonna be done, and it seems like that has all passed and nothing has really happened. So it seems to me as though that, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts did pass, as far as the whole state, but in the town of West Boylston, it was had won over the yes as far as, marijuana. So I know that the state is giving them, giving each town. Westboro was one of the first towns that I heard that basically said, there ain't no way, okay? The guy, was it the town planner from Grafton? He was at the meeting in 2017, and they were getting ready to vote. Now, I know that they've established a general bylaw and a zoning bylaw. So when the committee, the subcommittee was doing their research, did they look strongly upon Grafton to see exactly, what they approved, where, looked at maybe a zoning map that they had and see, where, kind of give us an idea, because people are saying, well, the map, I think that's a critical point, is the map, especially when you go to town meeting. People are gonna say, well, where is this area? Also, too, if for some reason town meeting does approve all of this, that map is gonna be essential, because if somebody comes in and wants to put something, either grow or cultivate it, they're gonna have to know exactly where they can go before they come to you. Because if they come to you and there's no map, and you guys say, well, I'm sorry, you can't put it there, well, there's no guideline.
Yeah, but
We need the
clearly
map.
now, we do know that, sorry.
Yeah.
We do know that what is a business district, it's all there.
I mean, the zoning
What
map
the
is,
zoning map, we have a zoning map.
zoning map is there.
So, and also, you know that the establishment should not be near this, pre-existing public, private schools,
cetera, et
daycare, the churches, library, parks. So those eliminates a lot of places. So we know where they can, we know where the, playgrounds.
But we need,
So-
we need the map from CMRPC.
Right.
That shows the
Agreed.
radius around playgrounds, schools, churches, et cetera, because that will explain a lot more than just the zoning map.
Well, I'm not totally against all of this, but my concern is that, like I said, everything that I've read from the CCC and from the state is still wishy-washy, and I just don't think that
Well,
maybe this is a good idea.
That doesn't affect our zoning bylaw,
Well, yes, it
though.
does, because the
Well,
fact
why-
is
why?
that, because if you go and approve it, you don't know what's gonna happen. What I'm saying is that I think that this should be put on the table until the CCC comes down with specific guidelines, and I'll vote no against it. Because I just don't believe that it's, that it's proper, because the CCC is still, not sure what's going on.
What is the consequence if we don't approve this zoning bylaw to the town? What actually happens?
If we don't vote to ban it, and then we don't pass this bylaw, that means you can come in and put your establishment anywhere you'd like.
Right.
So we have
So
time
if the
until.
CCC is wishy-washy and they decide to give a license and we didn't have anything in
No,
place,
what I'm saying
then they
is,
could
is
just
that.
do it wherever they want.
But what you can do is, you can vote to ban it temporarily until the CCC makes a clear-cut decision on what exactly he's gonna be doing. Then you can always bring, it's like anything in this town, any bylaw, any warrant article on a warrant can be brought back at another time. I've seen it happen many, many
Right.
times. So this is something that, even if we totally ban it now, for further study, we can always bring it back either in next May or next October.
Who
until the
decides,
CCC
who
makes a
decides that
decision.
who decides that they've cleared it up and now they've got their official rules and they're not gonna change them? I mean,
I'm not
cause they,
aware,
right.
Well, I guess it would be good to get some documentation from somebody that says this is what would happen if there's nothing in place.
Well, one of the
We need
suggestions
that
that
to
I made
answer the
is
question.
that,
yeah.
So, last town meeting, we did pass a temporary moratorium. The temporary moratorium is good until December 31st. The Cannabis Control Commission, the state, says if you do not pass a bylaw by December 31st, that anyone go get a license, go get file an application, they can go anywhere, any number of stores, any number of establishments, any number of growers can come into the town. The town has nothing to say, no, we are not allowing.
and I understand that, I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is to ban it. That is a
It's up to the
bylaw
town.
That's a bylaw to ban it.
It's up to the town.
Okay, that's.
If the
you're
town,
right, you're right.
the town wants to ban it, they can ban it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, so that's a bylaw, so we would still be we could still be in that category.
Again, this,
Didn't that already come up and get voted down?
Yes,
Yes.
that's correct.
Well, so there's gonna be another bylaw, or another article in the warrant? Is that,
There'll be 3 questions on the town meeting. The first one is the ban it, the second one is the bylaw, and the third one's the tax. So we're gonna have all the bases
When you
covered,
say ban it, what can you?
not allow it in town. Retail.
Marijuana at all?
Like
Oh,
the
we
No,
already-
rest.
retail, not
I'm sorry.
personal use. Retail, not
Okay.
personal use.
Okay.
Yeah, the
The
state-
town can't ban personal use, that's set by the state.
And the other suggestion that I made was the fact
You
that.
done?
hold on,
Wait a
hold on.
second.
And in regards to Mr. Femia, I understand what he's hearing in the news, but the commission does have a 201-page rules and regulations. I know they're talking about getting somebody to do the testing, but they still, the commission has rules in place. You know, I know we're hearing things on the news, I don't know all the details, but you guys said it. We need to have either do the bylaw, or if we do nothing, January 1st, 6 can come into town. Growing facilities can come. We can't limit to where, you know, it would open up the door. That's why we're trying to put the bylaw in place.
I mean, clearly, if it's voted at town meeting to ban establishments, then this becomes moot.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Sandy Green, 508 Prospect Street. With others, like as others have said, I feel like having a map at the town meeting would be helpful for everyone. It would have all the information together instead of having to go look at this grid and then go look at a map separately, so they try to search what they may not be able to find. So I think that'd be very helpful.
I agree with you. We will try to get that map as soon as we can and make it available before town meeting,
Yeah,
and put that on the website.
The
and
other thing is
distribute that.
I was concerned about people, like social clubs and things like that, and I'm glad to see that we're not going to allow that, because I have a concern, like everybody else here, about kids, you know, possibly getting hooked on it, get access to it. I've been concerned about people driving under the influence, and, you know, we have no way to really test somebody like we do alcohol.
Right.
On the flip side, I see it like alcohol too, and with the establishments that it sounds like you're allowing, like alcohol, you know, we would probably allow, a brewer in town, you know, somebody that would make the beer. We would allow transport and things like that, and we would allow, obviously, we have liquor stores in town. So I kind of see that as something like this, and, yeah, I mean, that, I guess others, I encourage others to kind of think about it that way too.
That's kind of how we were thinking about it.
Yeah.
I was gonna make that point as well. I don't know about the banning part, maybe there's not the form for that, but, if we were to ban it outright, I would hope that we would probably include the testing and maybe the transport as not banned. That'd be a thought, because I think testing might be a big industry.
Well, and even the cultivating, I mean, there's a lot of, even the cultivating, there's a lot of revenue to be
Right,
made there.
right,
you
it
know.
has nothing to do, kids are not being exposed to marijuana, because of the testing,
Mhm.
you know.
And then in regards to the part of these regulations, you'll find on the website of the state, these aren't just, you're not just gonna be able to walk in the door and buy. There's gonna be a security guard at the door, you're gonna go through one door, show IDs and things like that, then you're gonna go on 24-hour cameras, security.
Kind of like a liquor store, right?
No.
Much
No.
more intense, much more intense.
Anybody can walk into a liquor store at any time. You cannot enter these buildings, they're
Okay, well then stricter than a liquor store.
Yeah,
Okay.
stricter,
much,
yeah.
yeah, so I mean, just, I know what you're saying, and I agree, but the regulations are very strict in regards to everything. Like you said, signage, it's gotta be very, you know, it can't be a big lighted sign that says, come here to buy marijuana.
Yeah.
Not like liquor stores.
I mean, I guess I see it as a way for the town to get some revenue, and it's something that's like, you know, gonna happen anyway. And it sounds like, you know, what you proposed is, you know, it's gonna be secure, it's going to, you know, keep kids away from it, and hopefully, you know, keep people from driving, you know, when they shouldn't be driving.
Yeah, that's part of our concern about the social clubs was the,
Yep.
you go there and smoke and then get in your car and drive home, so that
Yeah.
seemed a little bit inappropriate for the town.
I was gonna ask, it may not be for bylaws, but, what do we do in the situation where, so the thing is, where someone gets in the car and smokes in the car, and it says here clearly you can't do that, right? Is there some kind of teeth to that, saying somebody reports to the police and somebody need to get their license pulled? I don't know.
Driving under the influence, right?
Well, no, this is more like you buy it in your car and smoke, and then someone calls the cops on them, the cop shows up and say, hey, you can't do that. And after 25 times, do we pull the license for the store?
at this time, you know, there is no testing. They are developing testing, right?
I think he's asking,
Well,
he's
yeah.
asking,
But can
though,
you-
if someone buys it and then goes out the car.
What happens at a liquor store if you buy some nips and sit in the parking lot? What, is there,
Open containers.
The police
Right.
will have all that, you know.
Well, no, and this bylaw doesn't allow that to happen on the premises. It was in
You
here
cannot-
somewhere.
Right, it's not supposed to.
I'm asking for us to write it in saying having someone.
What the
sign it.
consequences are.
And I think the question is there a criminal or a civil component to this?
right, and how do you, and how do you deal with an operator of an establishment that comes in and is not adhering to the rules or allows things to happen on their premises that,
We can take away the permit.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that's.
They can use it.
take away the permit, just like we do with anybody else.
and who would take away the permit?
Well, whoever issues the
Grantor.
permit, the board of selectmen issues permits
Okay,
for liquor establishments.
So
So
given-
if they,
If we caught somebody selling liquor to kids, who would take the permit away?
that'd be the board of selectmen.
like, so if there's
We'll
enough,
have to report from the police
right,
department.
so if there's enough complaints about a liquor store doing things like that, same thing.
The board of health is also gonna permit these establishments as well. And if we find that they are selling to minors, we do a test for like smoke shops and people that sell tobacco. We test regularly to make sure that they're not selling to people, underage, under 21. Same thing with the marijuana. We will be testing to make sure, we will send out testers to make sure that they're not selling to underage people.
Could you comment a little bit on the other things the Board of Health might be doing in this area? Rules or regulations and how that applies to smoking marijuana as compared to smoking tobacco?
Well, with regard to that, if the bylaw passes, then the Board of Health will develop regulations with regard to marijuana. And essentially, they mirror a lot of what's in the commission's requirements. That is that we will be, in some cases, they'll manufacture marijuana goods like brownies or some sort of oil or whatever. We will have to test, review their kitchens if they're manufacturing it here. Just as we would inspect a restaurant, we would also be looking for enforcement with regard to selling underage. We will send out testers like we do with tobacco. The smoking regulation goes into effect. Smoking, tobacco or marijuana is still smoking, so those regulations are in place. So you can't smoke in public places, you can't smoke in bar rooms, or et cetera, et cetera. So we will be looking at this whole, all the requirements that we deem necessary to promote public health.
Thank you.
But question, I thought the bylaws for the Board of Health for cooking edibles, that they don't have anything to do with.
Well,
Sean Fowler is a personal friend of mine, that's what she informed me when she was.
No, we will be looking, we will pass a regulation that
They
we
don't
will
have
be
to have
looking at.
an industrial kitchen to do that. They don't have to have any kind of, commercial kitchen or anything like that to do those edibles.
Well, it
That's what
will,
the Massachusetts.
well, I'll have to look at that, I'll certainly look at that, but the information I have, that we would be looking at, if it's a kitchen that's selling any type of product, we have an obligation to look at the cleanliness and to permit it, so. But we'll certainly take a look at that, but that's not what I've been told.
And what was your name, sir?
Nick Scannell, 127, Central Street.
I hope they don't sell them at a bake sale, just.
So if everyone could make sure you sign in, please, just so I can get names.
That kind of stuff, or.
Well, they still need to be inspected.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? We've certainly heard, yes.
Has the police chief commented to you on this bylaw as to how much time and money this is gonna cost to allow marijuana
I have not,
retail establishments?
I've not seen that,
No.
but that would be
No,
a
it's
good,
nothing to do with the police chief.
Well, and I think
Well-
if there's only 2 licenses and you don't know what it is that they're gonna end up licensing, right? Like how, it would be a tough estimate to make.
yeah,
I mean, we could do our best based on what's happened in other states, we can look
Or
at
other
California.
towns.
yeah.
Well, but no other towns have retail establishments yet, so there's no,
Oh.
And we might not get any. What if, maybe the 2 licenses will go to distribution and cultivation, right? You know, I mean, it could be a
no,
different
it's
thing.
two retail.
2 retail.
Oh, okay.
But, I lost my train of thought.
Police chief did
Police
not
chief.
comment on it.
He did not comment.
Commented.
But these type of expenses, we could recoup with the community agreement if the police chief felt that, gee,
Right.
okay, we're gonna have 2 retail establishments
So
in
he's gonna
town.
have to keep track of this.
Well, it's gonna be part of every permitting process, I would expect, if we're gonna have to build a host agreement, that's gonna be based on cost of the town. Andrew Phelan, 101 Central Street. We would have to sit down with the police chief and the fire chief, and it'd probably be strongly location-based. Now, if you stuck one out in the middle of nowhere.
Well,
in
right,
an
that's true,
industrial zone,
yeah.
That's probably not gonna cause as much potential cost as if you stuck one right next to Wachusett Wine and Spirits.
So it's a conversation we need to have with the police chief. That's correct. Chris?
I didn't announce, Christopher Ruccio, I was on the subcommittee and I'm on the board of selectmen. Now, as of right now, maybe you can tell me, has anybody come forward to put a retail? Few people have asked, but no one's come forward to move to the next step.
No,
in West
they're all,
Boylston.
they're all waiting
I've-
for this vote and for
I've-
the end of the.
I talked with someone who was interested, but again, they've approached in that regard, they've called the planning board, and I informed them of what our current status was.
And many other towns are way past that. They're already in the agreement stage, and some of these towns are still waiting for bylaws, so right now, there's no groups besides a few phone calls here or there.
The other thing is, so if we have it or not,
The state's giving out.
Worcester, the rumor is, they are going to have 10+ stores. The kids can, people can easily go there. Worcester did approve, whatever I heard, did approve 1 store by now. So there are so many stores, so many applications are pending. And the rumor is, they are going to approve 10+ stores. So, again, if somebody wants it, they are going to buy it.
In the back.
Oh, I just had a quick question on this.
Yeah.
Do you know if Worcester, with your 10+ stores, are any zoned close to West Boylston?
Good question.
We don't know.
I'm sure they, West Boylston Street, I can't imagine why they wouldn't be, there's a business zone, so we don't know the answer in the city of Worcester.
It feels like it would be across the street. As close as they can make it.
Well, that's the same, Boylston, Sterling, Anytown, Holden, they're all close.
Nice job.
Any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments from the planning board?
We got a bunch of process stuff, definitions,
Okay.
alphabetize the definitions, all that important stuff.
Ease of use for those of us reading it.
Those will-
Actually, the
and those,
only-
we will deal with those in our next meeting.
And the maps in town.
When should we do that?
Oh, what's this you have under section 4, the place? I don't know if it's different on the ones here.
Please? Yeah.
What's the difference between permitted with site plan review and permitted with
An R?
special permit in site plan review?
Well, there actually are no Rs in
Special
here. are there?
permit and site
I don't know, what I had didn't have that table.
Well, R is defined here, but there's no Rs.
There aren't any Rs to.
So we can get rid of that then.
I think it's a special permit and site plan review is the SPR.
No, SPR is permitted with the planning board, special permit and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we have no
but it's a
Rs. We
special
have no-
permit and site plan review.
We have no just permitted with site plan review.
All right, so we don't need that R.
We don't need that on here.
All right.
Well, on this one.
What about change of use?
What about changing?
That's site plan review? It's a change of use.
If they're gonna change into this
Definitely gonna be a
use.
change of use.
If somebody changes into this use.
I mean, pretty much, unless you're building a new building, it's gonna be a change of use for an existing building.
Like if somebody comes in and says, I wanna put this in a place that's already there.
Right.
Right, but if a change of use, site plan review requirements, no, but for this use, it requires that you get a site plan or a special permit from the planning board. So even if it is a change of use and doesn't trigger the parking spaces that creates a
Usually.
lot of problems these days, even if it doesn't trigger that, the definitions within this bylaw trigger the requirement for a site plan review. You didn't read that? Something to look for. I thought it said it's required to have a site plan review.
No,
Is it-
that I understand, but I know that there's been times when there's been a change of use where they've had to come to the ZBA or go to the ZBA for a special permit because of change of use.
Well, it depends on the use.
Right,
Well, like
it's
on-
one that's
well,
not
change
allowed.
use, or if it's a building that is specifically used for, office space, and now is gonna be used as.
Hospital.
The printing.
Cultivation or whatever, that's
Well-
a change of use. So I'm just a little
I
confused.
think
Well-
that's, I think
well,
that's in
because that's
the chart
within-
otherwise.
Yeah, it's within the chart, this 3.2 on zoning section 3.2. There's a chart there, so that if there's an automotive use, like when there's a car sales,
Or a
that's when it
drive-through.
goes to the ZBA. That's, the ZBA is the special permit granting authority under car sales and I think hospitals.
And drive-throughs.
So that's why you've gotten those two, but in this, it says that the special permit granting authority is the planning board. The other exciting things that I had, a map would be nice, that's
Yes.
something.
We should address these issues.
So
Now,
Well, we have to talk about them now because it's part of the zoning change.
Okay. Anyone who's leaving, please make sure you have signed in.
also
So I might get your name spelled almost right.
number 7, it's already been approved, right? Medical marijuana.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
what
we
that
need
is.
to add that into the first paragraph.
This is
The
treatment
First
center?
paragraph talks about, it refers to the state, but it doesn't make any reference to our local already approved medical marijuana stuff.
Well, that's the question for the planning board, how to merge this into the zoning bylaws, given that we already have a section on medical marijuana.
So in
Just- we
the
basically
table,
refer it.
the table we did put it like medical marijuana treatment center. It's
Okay.
already been approved.
I think that's already in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Excellent.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay. Thank you.
and thanks for coming.
Okay. So we won't close the hearing until we're done with this stuff?
Yeah, it should only take 5 minutes,
Okay.
I hope.
Thank you all.
As you get farther into the end of this thing, it goes between the commission, the CCC, and the marijuana something commission. So I wasn't sure if, like in the license requirements under, what section is that? Where it talks about, in section 5, beyond the nuisance one, it talks about,
Can we go through these one by
Nuisance.
one?
yep,
Okay.
in section 5.
Time and manner. Wait, section 5 of what?
What's our first one here?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So the license requirement.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. So, license requirements,
Under, well, that's hard to read.
you're telling me.
Nuisance.
So in this section 12 on page 6. So the applicant submitting proof of application to the CCC, it's deemed complete, blah, 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 it goes on. They have to do a special permit. And then the next paragraph, it talks about, where is it? The Marijuana Control Commission. And then the Cannabis Control Commission. Are these all the same things or different things or? I mean, we gotta be consistent. If it's
We do
all the
have to be
same thing,
consistent.
then
I think it's a cannabis.
Well, they're all referring to the same part.
Chris, what do you think about that?
CMR 500.
so let's,
It's a cannabis control commission.
They all say 935
Yeah.
CMR 500, okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's all cannabis control?
yeah, that's a
So,
cannabis,
so
not a
should we,
marijuana.
so should we,
in the definitions, I think cannabis control was just
yes,
referred in the future to be the commission, so. if
the
we're gonna
commission?
Make it the
Yeah.
commission, then make it the commission.
Yeah, it says 935 CMR
500.
Cannabis Control Commission in their regulations.
Okay, so we should change all references to CCC
Right,
and
Or commission.
Marijuana Control Commission.
Should be changed to
And-
CCC.
Should we change to the, well, it
You
should
can
be
just
something.
be consistent,
The-
whatever it is.
The commission or the CCC? Whatever,
As
whatever we
long
want
as
to
it's
say.
consistent, that's all it's, so it's not confusing.
Okay.
And then we talk about parking shall be in accordance with West Boylston.
What's the number?
I don't know.
16.
Here are,
Parking shall be in accordance with West Boylston zoning
can
bylaws,
I,
section 3.
before then,
Right.
it says, Cannabis Control Commission,
After
hereafter
commission.
commission.
Okay, so we'll change it to all to commission.
All of them will be changed.
Right.
Okay,
Whatever's right in this.
The second time.
yep.
Mhm.
So what's your,
Oh, zoning bylaw, section 3.6, and if
So,
it doesn't have a use.
3.6, we don't have a parking requirement for a marijuana
Okay.
place. Is the parking the same as any other retail store, or is it the same as Dairy Queen, or is it the same as
Is retail
a
store-
McDonald's?
same.
I don't know.
The
I
zoning
don't-
bylaw.
I-
That's
We can
what-
guess all
that's
we
what it
want,
says.
but it would
That's
be
what it
nice.
says.
No, but there's nothing in there.
There's nothing in 3.6?
3.6 has a retail, but it also has fast food, it has, other different services, but I don't know whether a marijuana place, I mean, if it's a grower, that's a different story. They're not gonna have a lot of parking, and it shouldn't be a big deal, but if it's gonna be a retail establishment,
Well,
what are we gonna
number,
make?
number 14 talks about line queue plans, number 15 talks about traffic impact statement.
Traffic impact statement, yeah. Where do we have a traffic impact statement?
For traffic study, or what are you talking about?
I don't know, it said something about that. Oh, yeah, vehicle,
Yeah, that's
traffic impact statement.
Motor vehicle assessment, access
Submit
statement.
a detailed motor vehicle access statement in accordance with the zoning bylaw, section 3.6.
And you say
That
what?
has nothing to do with section 3.6.
Okay.
I've
Does
never
it-
heard of that
Does it
phrase.
have to do with anything?
Well,
In our
traffic
current
study.
The idea is fine, but I don't know what that motor
Where do we
vehicle
go for traffic
access
studies?
statement.
It just as our site plan review?
It's within the site plan review. Yep.
So I think, they put it for the 3.6 because 3.6 talks about site plan review. The
Yes.
headline,
Yeah,
so they
it is.
didn't go to the subsections. Do we have a subsection for that?
Do you have it right
No,
there?
you got it right there. I don't
Yeah.
have it memorized.
Oh.
So for that
Hmm.
parking, public hearing on the site plan, this,
Did you want us to be more specific about the section?
yeah, that's what he said.
Well, or just don't,
Site design standard, 3.6,
we can just say site design. I didn't know what a motor vehicle access statement was.
It's a new term, isn't it?
Well, I mean, just the traffic, I think.
I
we
think
need-
traffic study is.
So we
really
just
what
need to
call it.
use the phrasing that we need, that's all. It's nothing.
traffic
fancy.
control, traffic study.
And then the parking shall be in accordance, do we wanna put in parking,
I don't know what the.
Parking
Site design
requirement?
standards, it's called.
I
it's
don't
under
think there's
site
any
design.
particular reason to have parking rules be any different than any other.
Are the
Well,
retail ones
because
based on
we
square
ended up with
footage?
something like Dairy Queen.
But there's no drive-through.
But restaurants are based on table, right?
Right.
Restaurant parking requirements, and are retail based on square footage of the store?
Yes.
So I
And
don't,
Would
they
this
don't
be
have
any
this
different-
retail?
any different than that?
I've never
Wouldn't
been
this
to one.
count as retail?
well,
I don't know what
I
it's
think
like.
it'd have to do
I don't-
retail, because we don't necessarily know if they can't have tables. So it'd have to be under the
No,
retail.
they cannot have a table outside, I guess.
No,
Well,
they can't, but they can't
You have
have,
tables period.
like a restaurant
inside,
has
that's
seats
not
that people would be in, and that's what they base the parking on. And they don't have that at these things, they don't, I don't even think we know.
Tables for what?
Well, but there's no
they-
Yeah,
requirement.
to look at it.
No, they go pay the money, pay the bill.
Right, so I think that the parking would be based on retail square footage, and that's the requirement you'd go by.
Right.
I would think
Because I
so.
don't think that
And is
there'd be
that
anything
gonna
else.
be, right, but is our parking appropriate for that?
That's
Because
what we
I
don't
don't
know.
wanna end up stuck, and I don't
You
have
think
any
it's-
idea how much a
Well, it'd
marijuana
probably be
place.
like,
Cause you go to the fireworks places in New Hampshire, and at certain times, it's packed, and other times it's empty.
Well, maybe on
Is a
April,
fireworks place
maybe on-
similar to a marijuana?
maybe
I
on
would,
April
I would liken,
20th,
I would liken
whatever.
marijuana places to liquor stores, right?
Yeah.
Like,
or CVS, or something
Yeah.
like that.
So liquor stores will be busier on holidays. I don't know if marijuana use mimics alcohol use in that regard.
it's probably steadier.
I think it's
I
probably
would guess.
steadier than people
Just
buying
retail.
Right.
barrels of liquor for
Right,
their
on
Fourth of July
yeah.
party.
But on the other hand, Fridays, maybe you'd be a little
Sure.
more popular than
Yeah.
The long
What's the
weekend.
regulation for,
Wednesday, right?
5,
Yeah.
6? What's the regulation for liquor
No,
stores
it's
that
not
park?
done yet.
April 20th
footage?
will be a
That's
big
what I'm
day.
What?
Depends-
April 20th will be a big parking day.
It depends on whether whether it's shared parking. I mean,
Well,
we
yes.
have a liquor store in town that by I believe it's by SNS.
Yeah,
It has,
That's their own
There's a tattoo parlor there.
no.
No, that's
one
its own
building.
parking lot.
They have their own
Oh,
park.
the building next door, is it one parking lot for both of those buildings?
That's all grandfathered,
Yeah, but
it's
but
been,
still
right,
considered shared
but that
parking,
has
right?
nothing to do with what our parking requirements are.
No, but
That's been there.
if an establishment moves into, like, say, an area where there's,
Like the Subway Plaza.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Or even to,
Checkerboard?
where, not Checkerboard, but the other place, where Walmart is. Not Walmart, but where the post office is.
Could be Walmart.
Yeah.
Where,
Yeah.
El Farano.
It's shared
Yeah,
parking.
yeah, shared parking.
El Forno's used to be. Okay, that's shared parking. All of that is, that whole plaza is shared parking.
True.
Okay, well, with that, and I'm not trying to promote anything, but with shared parking, they have to come to the ZBA for a special permit.
You do?
They do?
It says right here,
Where?
right in, section
So-
3,
So when Il Forno,
3.6.
so when Il Forno
number
opened up,
E4, the zoning board of appeals may allow reduction of the required number of spaces in conformance with section 5.2B3 of this bylaw. That's for shared parking.
okay, so Il Forno's used to be a McDonald's, so I imagine the parking for a McDonald's would be way different than parking for Il
But
Forno.
it's still in the plaza where they have
Yes,
shared parking.
so what, okay, so what's your concern?
No, there's no, I'm just saying.
Does it require ZBA special permit? That's it.
Right.
Would it?
Yeah, for shared parking.
Did Il Forno come to you when they opened up?
I don't know. I wasn't on the board when they came.
Okay. But you think they should have?
Yeah.
So you could evaluate the parking needs that might be
Retail areas
different
for
than the
sales
square
and
footage
display
of the
of
store
portable
or the
Because if they,
standards?
because look at it this way, if you're in a plaza, okay, and you have shared parking, okay, say there's 5 or 6 stores, okay?
Yeah.
Like, perfect
think
example,
that's what it would
Dunkin'
be?
Donuts. There's times in the mornings where you can't
Yes,
even
I
park.
understand.
You have to park almost down where the other retail stores are, and then walk to Dunkin' Donuts because there's no parking.
Well, yeah, it's shared parking. Same with Troy Lee's.
Right, exactly.
Anymore?
All right, so what we're looking at
Okay.
is within our
Off-street parking.
off-street parking requirement. Talks about retail areas for sales and display of portable goods and related retail services. So one space for every 250 square feet, which seems like a decent number, because sometimes in industrial and warehouse, it's 1 per 1,000 square feet. So at least it's a higher intense,
You
or
can
more
have it.
intense amount.
You can have that document.
We got another computer.
And it's not a bowling alley, so. Public
That would be
garage,
fun.
we don't even have a public garage, do we?
A combination of bowling alley and marijuana establishment?
Sure, why not?
All right,
Recess.
all right. So it looks like we have enough
Maybe that's what
parking,
we
we're
should
not gonna worry about it.
Is that 3.6, by the way? Whatever.
3.6 is here. That's 5.2.
So if, can I just ask about the parking? If you have, if they're in a plaza,
2J.
you know,
Where's your-
I know
see
that
what
the
it-
bylaw
this
says
is.
that there's no parking either in the front of the building, it has to be on the side or in the back. But in a plaza, business center, that's all different, because everybody parks in front of the store. So would that be something that the planning board would look at and say, okay, you know, fine, you know, you can do that? Or you're gonna require these people to park either in the back of the building or on the side of the building? And that's a question for Mr. Vignali, because he's probably more authority
You
on
can
that.
answer it.
Parking,
You can
he's
answer
our
it.
parking expert. Where's the
Well, it's
requirement?
the zoning requires parking in the side and the rear. It's still gonna be required. That's the way the zoning is written.
But in a business center, that doesn't apply.
It does apply.
Who has parking in the side or the rear? Subway doesn't?
No, Subway doesn't.
The Subway was in before the
Yeah.
bylaw was in
Yeah.
place.
Dunkin' Donuts doesn't?
Salter School was the reason the bylaw was put in.
But but they park in front of the building.
But they were already,
I
they were
understand that.
all in place
And I
prior to
understand
it.
that.
The
So
only
what
ones
I'm-
that have come in that are not in the front are, well,
Come on.
Cumberland
bank.
Farms got it because they got a variance from the zoning board of
They didn't
appeals.
get no variance. We didn't issue any variances to Cumberland Farms, all
I
special
don't-
permits.
Alright, so
But
then,
anyways,
the,
To the bank there, they used to be
Clinton
friendlies.
Savings Bank,
Dorados is on the side.
Clinton Savings Bank, Gerardo's,
They're in the
West
front here on the
Boylston
side.
Seafood,
you know,
all the ones that are newer, Clinton Savings,
Dairy
Webster
Queen.
First,
Dairy
the
Queen
church
is.
that's down in the hill there.
But what I'm asking is, and maybe it's getting a little bit ahead, but what I'm asking is that if one of these cafes does go into a
Cafes are not
business-
allowed.
Not
Not gonna
allowed,
do cafe.
no cafes,
Retail is all there's gonna be.
no soda.
That's a cafe, is a retail, that's what they call it.
No, they can't consume
Okay,
there.
No,
so you
because
can,
you
so
can't consume it,
cafe
right?
is, just go there, you sit there,
So,
smoke,
let's call them by the term
Parlor.
social club.
It's a
Yeah,
social
social
club.
club. They're calling retail establishments cafes?
That's what
Yeah.
I heard.
That's,
In
that-
the
Doesn't
retail
sound right.
store, you cannot smoke inside.
Or outside.
a cafe would suggest sampling of the products and.
For consumption.
That's a totally different, yeah.
I'd just like to make one last suggestion, and I know that the town administrator and chairman of the board of selectmen here. Okay, there is an attorney at Copeland and Page, and I know that we have one at town meeting, Catherine Hoffman, okay? She is probably the more experienced person as far as marijuana for Copeland and Page, and she also helps out with the cannabis commission. I'd like to know if there's a possibility if we could specifically ask for her, because I feel that there's gonna be a lot of questions that I don't think people are gonna be able to answer, and I think she would be able, she'd be the person to put everybody. She was at our she was at that meeting in February of 2017, you know. I don't think we could get anybody from the Cannabis Commission, although it would be nice to get Kay Doyle, because she's one of the commissioners, and she is tremendous. But if we could, if the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator could reach out to Copeland Page and ask that she be.
What do you think?
Well, listen, I don't, Anita, and this is a bylaw we're talking about.
I understand, but
Not
there's gonna
gonna
be a
be
lot of
one
questions, and she deals with all of that. There's gonna be a lot of questions about it.
Let us answer it. I mean, I don't see.
I think KP Law is looking at this, they have this, and I think that you would find that any attorney that they send to town meeting is gonna be prepared to speak to the majority of the questions that get put before us. Is there a chance that if Katie Laughlin was present, that she would be able to answer every and all question? I don't know. I can certainly speak to our head attorney on that issue and get some feedback from her to give to the Board of Selectmen, but I do know that KP Law makes a point to make sure that whatever attorney they send is up to speed on the items that are on the town meeting warrant.
If I could just add, the moderator will make sure we stay to this bylaw, to the article that's there. So if they
Correct.
that person that comes from KP Law that knows all about the 200 pages, the town moderator may say, no, you're way outside the scope of this bylaw.
Correct. And, right, and that would be good.
Right,
I
right.
agree with Anita. I think anybody they send will better be able to answer any questions in regards to the articles that are on there.
All right, Vinnie,
We talked about,
did we go through these like willy-nilly, or it seems like you're randomly just like picking them
I'm
out?
going by my pages, the way I did it. I printed this off from the town's website,
This is also from the town website.
but it wasn't formatted like that. I just got it, well, maybe it was my copy and paste that did it, because
You
I
have
couldn't
it,
download it. So anyway, where I'm at is home occupation. I don't know where you are.
Home occupation.
Probably at 6 or 7.
Oh, page 6, number 7?
6, I don't know, 6 or 7, I don't know.
It's not allowed.
Yes,
Not
but I'm
permitted
just
as a
finding
home
a place that's
occupation.
easy to find. That's-
Oh,
wait a minute.
that's where you are.
I don't see where you are.
So,
Page 6, number 7.
That is page 6,
Oh,
number
in the
7.
definitions?
so home occupation, no.
No?
Page 6, number
Page
7.
6, number 7,
Thank you.
I guess.
You gotta give me some guidance here.
All right, now go down a
Home
little,
occupation,
go down to the
That, down's this way,
host
right?
agreement,
Yeah. Sorry.
host agreement. Somewhere it says.
Community,
host
Nine.
agreement.
community
Nine is-
host agreement, number 9, yes.
Yep, it goes in there, and then it says, through the Board of Selectmen, period, then it says community outreach meeting, I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
10.
Community outreach meeting, is that different than the public hearings for the site plan review and for the special permit? Or what is that?
Good question. Do we have to call them something
Or
special?
are we gonna have to have 3 separate meetings?
Actually,
I don't
it
know,
refers.
I wanna write it, so I only have to do one.
It refers to the community outreach
That's a
outreach
good
hearing
goal,
in
Vinnie. I
accordance
like
with
that.
the state's
Don't make it easy
requirement.
on you.
Yes,
I'm
I
sorry,
like
what?
that especially.
Looks like the community outreach meeting is required to be in accordance with the state document, 935 CMR 500. That might not be one of our,
That's not the planning board's job to do the
No, 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 no,
outreach
but-
meeting.
So
we
is
do-
that something the selectmen are gonna do when you review the,
Oh, to give this special
it
permit?
just says that no special permit can be deemed complete
Yeah, I see.
unless
a
a community
To
outreach
give
meeting
the-
has
right.
been.
right, but we issue
I
the
get
special
it.
permit.
I get it.
The
So we need
selectmen
proof.
issue
You get it?
the.
You explain
No,
it.
so in order to reach the community host agreement, there has to be the community outreach hearing first.
Outreach meeting.
Meetings.
So that's the selectmen will be doing.
So that's a selectman thing.
Both of
right?
those are selectmen.
And it sounds like we just have to make sure
We
they were
just-
there.
We
Then,
make
just
sure
have to
they've been
hold our
done.
special
right,
permit.
yes,
Yes.
we're holding on to it
So we have
until
one- we have
those
one
boxes
meeting.
are checked.
Yeah, this is confusing. First one of these is gonna be interesting.
I think,
Well-
There's only gonna be 2.
you have any answer?
That's,
No, I think you
No,
guys
it's-
answered it.
it's- yeah, it makes
front-
sense.
That whole section's in front
I'm sorry.
of the Board of Selectmen, the host agreement, the outreach.
Yes.
And it's just that we have to make sure that it happened before we can do anything. It's just saying that this is,
Yeah, and I think that's similar to like on the 40B, where you guys have to do some kind of an agreement before the ZBA really gets their teeth on it. So, okay. I think that's it, just a lot of CCCs and, oh, we got an energy use thing.
Yep, energy is number 13.
We're gonna look at all this, we're gonna review the proposed energy demand, the ventilation system, the air quality, proposed water system, and utility demand.
well, that's you.
So,
Who's looking at that?
well,
You got that,
Planning
Sarah?
board.
do we have a specialist here in the planning board
I
who
don't-
knows about HVAC issues?
That's what I'm not
We
sure.
never have.
But I guess they're gonna,
So
they're gonna
that's the-
submit something.
For the site plan review, you do, go out to get the.
Not site plan review, not at all.
Well, no, site plan review, we get VHB to look at it. But
Sure.
what I'm
Not
saying
the
is,
construction and that stuff.
well, you can look at all these things, but what if they say they're gonna use 20,000 gallons of water when they really should only be using 50? Who's gonna know?
That's a very, very good question.
Is there any standard in how to review this, is what, I guess my question.
I guess I'd ask you, how about any other business that comes to town?
We don't do it.
We don't do that.
Well, I know, but if you don't know what they're gonna use for water or. right?
But we don't care.
We don't even ask.
This.
so why are we asking?
All marijuana cultivators.
What are we
shall
looking-
submit
what are
an
we-
energy use
Where are
plan
we at right
to the planning board.
Right,
Oh.
this is for that, I
Still
think,
on
whether it's for the
energies.
green
Got it.
community standard or something, so that they're using the low voltage lights or the LED lights and, zero
In the-
escaping,
I don't think
little
there's
bit of
anything-
water.
I don't
I
think
don't
this
know
has
that
anything
it's-
specifically to do with marijuana. I think it's a nice to have, but, I mean,
It
it's
says,
not,
and then if you read the whole section,
Yeah,
demonstrate best practices for energy conservation.
but we don't know what those are.
I don't,
We don't-
Who do we-
VHB know
who's
who
gonna
it
do
is?
I'm sure they say they do, but I don't know for sure.
I mean, you bring up a good point.
That's my question, is I wouldn't know how to evaluate it.
Right.
Right,
And
so are we
nobody
just
else
gonna
in the
rubber
planning
stamp
board
it every
would either.
time, or should,
So they could submit their plan.
We'd have to hire a
We,
separate consultant. Or maybe we talk to John Fitch. He's got all the energy stuff, but,
I'm sure
and
the
then
water department
water
would give
district would
input
do
on
that.
the water part of it,
So
the light
the,
department.
the real.
Well, actually, the water department
Water
would.
district would do that.
We do submit these things to the water
Mhm.
department, and if they say there's adequate, like, you can't put 27 houses in there's not enough water to
Right.
supply, or there's not enough sewer. But I don't know if we ever have power. I don't think the light plant ever says.
No,
like
but
that.
the light plan is involved here is, the cultivation.
Yeah,
They do
probably-
need a-
So we would just have to,
I mean, this is not
Figure it
really
out.
necessarily for a retail establishment. They're not gonna be using.
No,
it.
right,
is
this
for
is
the-
like for
Well,
cultivation
they're
stuff,
growers,
right? Like they're growing and they're using
well, that
lights to
makes
do
sense,
it.
good, that's good.
So we just, okay.
So we say,
I
put
guess
solar
this
panels on your
just
building.
allows us to require them to give us that information.
Yeah.
And so I'm not.
Pass it
the-
along to those
Yeah.
interested
Right.
parties.
And we, under site plan review, we send it off to everybody anyway,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so I think that's good.
Lighting plan? I mean, they review it for the electrical part.
I think we do. Subdivisions, I know we do.
Well, I know they do it for the electrical installation, but I don't know if they do it for the power consumption.
For subdivision? What? What do you wanna make
Cause
sure
it's
you
mostly
want?
it's not I don't think we've ever
How
had
do
a
you-
power problem.
I don't know.
How do you do it? By square footage of the house, and you have, multiply it out, and you say the house is gonna use.
Well, I mean,
such and
so
such
that's what I mean, maybe they don't know the
Right.
power
I'd ask-
consumption.
I'd ask you guys that are on the board, all it's saying is you must submit it.
Right.
What you do with the information when you get it.
Yeah,
It doesn't tell you what
That you even have to do
with it.
anything.
right.
If you see something that you don't think, or the light department looks at it and says, I don't know, there's an issue with this, I think, it just says that they must submit this information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's fine.
That's fine.
thank you. That made it very clear.
And then down, there's this permitting. Planning board shall be the special permit granting authority, good, it's clear. Requirements and procedures shall be conducted pursuant to the zoning bylaw, section 6.2, special permits. But that's different than section 3.6, site plan review. So we wanna add in and section 3.6, site plan review?
Yes.
And I'm almost there, down a couple of paragraphs. That compliance would cause, these are the standards, the waivers that would be granted.
Yep.
The planning board shall approve or disapprove said waivers based on the following CCC criteria.
The
Um,
commission.
Yeah, well, I'm not worried
Yeah,
about that.
right.
The item that I actually have noted here is the requester provides to the planning board written documentation in a form and manner determined by the planning board supporting its request for a waiver.
It's a lot of words about nothing.
So, but I guess that's okay, that's what they're doing. My question is, are we then not allowed, it doesn't say anywhere that we're allowed, the planning board is not allowed to waive this section of the bylaws. So we're allowed to waive the CCC stuff, but if in our bylaw it says you have to do a site plan review, and the site plan review says you need to stand on your head, and the planning board says, no, you don't have to, without it saying in this bylaw that we can waive strict compliance with this section,
I love wage
we don't,
compliance.
yeah, I figured you
Yeah,
would.
we know
yes.
that.
But,
I love
so,
wage.
do we wanna add that phrase in here? So, the planning board would be allowed to waive strict compliance with this section.
Yeah, you're saying this section is too restrictive.
Well, this talks about waivers, but only to waive the CCC standards,
Right.
the 935
I
stuff.
actually think we can't actually waive those.
Right, yeah.
Well, I don't know, it says that we can, but I
We're
don't-
talking about waivers that were granted by the CCC,
These are the
right?
reasons why we can waive something.
What section is this?
From the CCC standards, but not from our bylaws.
935.
Because in the site plan review,
No,
there's a
we're-
section, in the
oh,
site plan
waivers.
review, has a section right in there that says, we can waive strict compliance with this section. It doesn't mean we can waive strict compliance with frontage requirements or area requirements, just in site plan review, they have to do a traffic study. Well, if it's, whatever it is, a little 5,000 square foot office that's moving into somewhere else, we don't need a traffic
So you're
study.
suggesting that we are, this should mention that we're allowed to waive things as we normally would with any other site plan review?
No, more so.
We'll just put a stipulation in this section of the bylaw that we can waive strict compliance with this bylaw. Not that we always or ever do, but,
So if it was like a
Something-
retail establishment and they didn't know their power use, yet it says they're required to submit it, we could say, all right, you don't have to submit it, we can waive that, because it's
How would you-
really,
yeah.
it's
They're just
it's
a
a
retail
retail
thing,
establishment,
right.
not a growing facility where we think the power consumption is an issue.
How would you change the wording on this then? Are you gonna
it would be in a
submit this to
different
me?
place. I'll give it to you, yeah.
Or we'll give it to you to,
Exactly.
I will email it to you.
you're gonna make those changes?
These are
You're
mostly
gonna do it
questions.
Who owns the
Who will make
the
the first
bylaw
draft?
right now?
I'll
Did
try
you
to
give
make
it to us?
Okay, all right.
I
Okay.
put it on my-
So it's our bylaw, we have a copy of the bylaw that we can
Yeah.
edit?
Do you want me to send that to you?
Yeah, please.
Not to me, send it to
Yeah,
me.
because I just, like I said, I copied and pasted and it's not pretty.
Don't we have that?
What do you have, DOS computer?
He doesn't know, He does it on his phone.
We'll send it to you on a floppy.
Don't do that.
Send it, send it to him on a floppy, yeah.
That's right, all right.
5-inch floppy.
Oh, and it goes through, the special permit for marijuana establishments shall be limited, go down a little bit, to one or more of the following uses that shall be prescribed by the special permit granting authority, right here.
A special permit for.
So what section is that? That's
Section
section six?
3, well, 6.3.
So 6.3, so we got this, a special permit can be granted for all these things, and then the last one, if we're not gonna allow, what do you call them, the cafes?
Social club?
Social clubs, don't leave in any other type of
That's a good
marijuana-related
point.
business.
Yeah, really.
If the things we're allowing,
Accepting clubs or social clubs, you could say that, but
Social consumption establishment.
well, if we limit,
why do we have that one in there
why
that
is this
says
even
any
in
other?
there? Yeah, that doesn't seem.
Or,
Well, there's 5 categories here. Were there exactly 5 categories that we're allowing?
No, there's 8.
Cultivator, product
Right.
manufacturer,
Right.
retailer,
Yep.
testing,
Yep,
transportation or distribution.
Yep.
Is that it?
and then you
That's
hit any other.
Does that, I know, but does that
Oh.
match what we've mentioned
Yes.
elsewhere in the document? Just the first 5?
Oh, wait a minute, no, I
Just-
thought you were
right.
reading something.
Well, so-
No. Does that match what we're allowing? Look in the chart.
I don't have
can we just say,
It does have testing.
Oh, testing.
IV.
Number 2.
Yep, that's testing is the fourth one.
Well, either that, I hate for things to be mentioned twice, but
I don't know why this chart should be different than this chart.
should we reference the chart then?
Make 'em-
yeah,
Get-
yeah,
get-
just
Get
reference
rid
back
of
to the
1 through
chart.
6 entirely and say, as described in
The table of use.
Yeah.
table of use. There's really no need to have this mentioned
Or schedule
twice.
of use.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
schedule of
Section
use.
what? In
4.
section, so is that in section
Section-
3.2?
No, now it's in, now this table of use is in
So-
this bylaw,
Oh, it's a separate
section
one.
4.
4.1.
Yeah.
yeah,
Schedule
so
of
you
use
say one or more of the uses.
Oh, and that's really gonna be confusing.
When you have to go
More
find another
schedule of
schedule of
use.
use.
Yeah.
Well,
Is this
You guys
schedule of
drafted
use going
this.
to be incorporated into our master schedule?
that's what he was just bringing up.
I just asked that, I don't know,
Well,
'cause
he was bringing up
'cause in
that it's
this one-
confusing.
in this one, it's not even included. So I was thinking there was gonna be another phrase somewhere that says, we're gonna add these lines, these rows into the schedule of use section 3.2, blah, blah, blah.
We should,
So it's all the schedule of use says everything in the
Yep.
town.
yeah, we should.
Except that the dilemma will be that we're editing this bylaw right now, not that bylaw.
Well, it would be
That's correct.
you would do it all together. You would do this bylaw and also have, and
And
add
edit
this bylaw.
This bylaw section, this to add this table, okay,
And we, cause that's how, when we add a use, we add it into that
that table,
thing
okay.
as well. You don't have to have separate articles. If it all passes, it all passes and gets corrected. If it all fails, it
gets
fails.
changed, it gets changed in the.
And then, yep, the clerk takes care of it.
Okay.
Are you the
so-
clerk?
No, the town
Oh,
clerk, the real clerk.
Clerk.
You wanna do that then? That's a, kind of a substantial revision to this. To take this chart out of this part of the bylaw and stick it into the table of use, the standard table of use.
Can we just not add a line in here somewhere that says that this will be,
I mean,
you know, if,
it's kinda like you have
this
to
will be
make it
added
not,
to the
it's all this.
schedule
I
of
look at it
use
as-
as approved?
And I'll use an old zoning warrant article that we did in the past and see if we can do the same things.
So somebody's suggesting that we not have a chart here?
No,
Not have a chart as this bylaw, have the chart where all the other charts are.
We have to describe what's gonna be in the new chart.
Yeah,
No,
no,
this
we will
is
have, we will have this exact thing here,
Yes.
but it will be in
where
a
all the other
separate,
uses are.
not within this document. It will say in here somewhere that the uses will be per schedule 3.2 in the zoning bylaws.
2.6?
5.8.
And then you do the rest of your wording on this bylaw, and you have a separate, this is the section. It's been done in the past that way.
So the description of what establishments are allowed in what zones is not gonna be in this.
Right, it stays within the rest of the zoning bylaw here.
So there's no description, of that, even words?
3.2.
Is there no description of that, even words, in this, in here?
In this? No, because you're referring to one
You should, you should
table.
refer to it.
You refer
So,
to a
but
table.
when we go to the town meeting, we will leave it like this. But when the bylaw passes, it will go there, right?
I don't
Well,
know.
it'll say,
Well,
it has to say that it's changing the other bylaw.
Right,
Yeah.
the
that's
wording
what I
has
said.
to say that.
Like this
It's
chart?
all gonna be
So
basically
can we
the
just
same
add a
thing.
line to this document? Because I agree that at the town meeting, it will be most
Well,
useful.
that's what
For
he's
the
gonna
chart to
dig
be
up, is
in
how
this
we've done it
document.
before.
Yeah.
And usually it's right up top and in the paragraph of, or the pages of bylaw are right.
I think
there.
all Vinnie wants
So
to do
we
is
would
have
have
this table of use chart
So we extend
to have this,
businesses.
this table at the end of it, or wherever it is in it. You know, so that you only look in one place for your
So
uses.
we would present at town meeting a revised, that table revised?
He's gonna look for the language, cause he's done it before.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, he's done it before,
You've
none
done
of
it.
us.
You have done it. Some of our memories are just not as
I
good.
don't, I mean, I know that, like, if you look through this, amended June 27th, Article 14, amended this, this is how they did it before, so you maybe amended or added a line. So that's what this is gonna look like.
See,
Well, I'll
I
put
have
it to
an
you,
idea.
if you like it,
look at
then,
it done it before.
Right. Look how
if
we've
you
done
don't like it, we can do it, we can leave
Yeah,
it this way.
Okay. I just think it needs to be clear in this zoning bylaw about the zones and
Yeah.
the use.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see in the
Absolutely.
bylaw that they see on the floor, it'll have this table. But this, sort of this lingo will change to not say it's part of this bylaw. This is gonna change in this section of the bylaw. You know?
Anything else?
Yeah.
Vinnie?
Well,
Mr. Picky?
No,
Well,
no,
I'm
no, it's
reading
good.
through
This
when
is
I was-
actually what we used to do with everything, so it's good.
I know, it's good though. It's all good.
We
the
need
section
Karen.
farther
Karen did this
down,
faster.
yeah, she was much better.
She was much better at this.
She was really good. Evidence of the applicant's right to use the site. That should be like a couple of paragraphs below.
Yep. 643.
And then it talks about proposed security measures for the establishment, including, isn't this already in here somewhere? I read it once.
Is it in here twice?
and
What is
It's a little different here than it is there, and I wasn't sure why or what was going on.
security
Where are
measure?
you?
I don't know.
It's page 8 on the top paragraph.
So basically, this has to
Or-
go, they have to submit a plan to the chief of police, and he
The
has to.
security, right, but there's somewhere else before this, there was security measures already described.
Oh, are you talking
required.
about page 6, number 8, where it says security, under the home occupation section?
That might be. Under the home
Home
occupation.
occupation.
No, hopefully it's
Yeah.
not.
Right, it's just under there.
Hey, home occupation is
Page
Under-
6.
Right under that is number 8, security.
there,
Vinnie.
Oh,
Yes,
security,
which is-
yeah.
which is
Is that
part
the
of,
same as the
no,
last
this is
page?
section 5, and this is section,
Well, all I saw was it's in there twice. If it needs to be, that's great. I just wasn't sure.
Here's the,
Number 8,
here are the words that come first, which is on page 6. Every application for a special permit for the operation of a marijuana establishment shall include a security plan describing all security measures. And I'll paraphrase. Site security, transportation, marijuana products, safety plan should mitigate any potential harm to employees, make sure that customers are 21 years old. This one here says, proposed security measures including lighting, fencing, gates, and alarms to ensure the safety of persons and to protect the premises from theft. They're different, but
Because I think,
It
because
should
that,
be- shouldn't
Put
it
'em
be
all together.
combined?
yeah.
Shouldn't you combine it?
we probably should
Basically,
combine
what
them.
it says, because numbers, on page 6, number 8, is saying that, you know, the security plan shall meet all security requirements of 935 CMR
Numbers,
500
Which was-
1 double X,
6, 8.
okay? And then the other one says that, a letter from the
Section eight,
town of West Boylston
Five,
chief of police
section 5,
or
item 8.
designee acknowledging review and approval of marijuana establishment. So I
Because-
think that,
because this is the section,
Eminent in the first mention of it?
And this is special permit.
right, this is the section that's talking about
So
the
it should
special
be-
permit
So
requirement.
it should be there. Leave it.
I
It
think,
should,
yeah,
okay,
All right. I just was reading through and
yep,
I hear
no,
you.
that's fair.
Go down 2 lines from that, the establishment demonstrates that it will meet all permitting requirements. Yeah, I just threw in and certifies, but I think should be all right.
I don't see that part.
That's all right. Don't worry about it.
Oh, here it is.
Um,
It's 5.2.
The wording on that is odd. The establishment demonstrates, and later we say the applicant is satisfied. Shouldn't that be the
All the
applicant?
applicant, yeah.
The applicant demonstrates that the establishment will meet all the, well, the establishment doesn't do anything. The establishment is a thing.
It's right.
It can't really take any action.
Oh, you're right, yes, that makes sense.
So what should that say?
And the,
The applicant
demonstrates-
demonstrates that
Applicant.
they will meet all permitting requirements?
Yes, yes, that's good.
Do you wanna add in also any local requirements as well, state and local? Should it be a general coverage?
This is under the special permit requirements section, so I
Yep.
think that's just
But
covering what we're
that's
supposed to
great.
do.
Right, but if we just throw in there local as well, because
There had been talk during
We
one of
did
your-
talk a lot about that, especially concerning sign requirements, that
Oh.
the signs must
Sure.
adhere to both
That's in
the commission requirements and local requirements.
yes, that was in there.
Did you want to mention that type of thing again in this section?
No, just, we get all of it in there by saying state, local,
Sure,
and
okay.
Yeah,
laws and regulations.
yeah.
Yeah, the signs were a particular interest, because we want the sign to adhere to the more strict of the state rules and the local rules.
Sounds
I
good.
thought there was not gonna be any signs.
Oh, there
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 are
will be a
signs.
small
I
sign.
mean, you gotta,
You can have
Same
signs,
way.
but the signs have to adhere to the state rules and also our rules.
Have you
Right.
seen in the Huntington Avenue, when you enter Huntington Avenue, there is a place, there is only a small tiny sign.
Does it have a leaf on it?
It's not
You
the
can't
leaf,
have a leaf.
it's,
Can you have a leaf?
it's a different kind of,
Oh, no, it's the packaging that can't have a leaf. Is that what it
Nothing
is?
can have the leaf.
Nothing can have, okay.
no big signs, there is a sign.
Anita?
This draft is still using XX as a placeholder number.
Yes, it is.
So do you know yet what it's gonna be, or?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What bylaw number?
Yeah, is it 13, it's the next number?
Do you want it under that, under
Yeah.
its own thing?
313. Because we have medical marijuana is 312, and this would be
perfect.
whatever the other marijuana
Yes.
is. What is it referred to as?
Recreational marijuana?
Is that?
No.
Oh,
That's
look
what
at
I would
this.
use, but
Adult
I
use
mean,
Yeah,
marijuana,
maybe
adult use marijuana, well,
No, adult use marijuana,
adult use marijuana establishments.
fair enough.
Would that be the right
Okay.
wording?
marijuana establishments is what it says, so.
That's true.
I don't-
It's a draft.
Whatever the word is, we can put in there, but it seems like section 313 is the way to go.
Yeah, that's the
And
section.
we have to,
For your question, it's 313.
Well, I think the categories of medical and adult use, are those descriptive enough?
that sounds good to me.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that sounds
So
good.
this is gonna be considered a business use, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, yes.
Because of business use, number 22 is the medical marijuana treatment center,
Yes.
okay? But because this is recreational marijuana, couldn't it also fall under recreational use?
It's not it's adult use marijuana.
adult
This-
use.
This is not a medical marijuana use that we're talking about here, so we have to set up a whole nother set of uses and things like that, and
Was that,
bylaws for it.
was that
So
not your
the-
question?
The recreational marijuana, that wording is taken off.
Oh, okay.
Now it's called adult use marijuana.
Chris?
I just recall, the people that were on the subcommittee, we have a sentence or a paragraph that said, you must fall under the CMR, all town rules, all town bylaws. Didn't we keep that in? We had a sentence, we got it from one or the other.
What is that?
Right,
That's
that's-
covered,
that's
that's
where we're at.
covered by
That's- that's where it's
the
just
word
at.
local.
Applicable state,
Right at the beginning, I
And
thought,
local
maybe,
laws and
maybe we
regulations.
took it out.
The beginning of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Under section 2, the scope, there had been talk about that, but the one thing that did make it into the draft, I think it was at your meeting on the 20th, was to add in the sentence 3 about nothing in the section shall be construed to supersede local West Boylston Board of Health regulations. If you wanted to add in reference to local, you could amend item 2 above that and say nothing in this section shall be construed to supersede federal and state governing the sale and distribution of narcotic drugs.
Well, let's leave that one alone, because that's narcotic drugs.
So we could make.
Right, yeah.
Maybe number 3 could be to supersede local West Boylston laws and Board of Health regulations, just to make it more general.
Board of Health.
It's XX.2
Zoning-
scope
just
on the
say
first
West
page.
Boylston-
Right,
West-
number 3.
Well,
West
West
Boylston
Boylston
Change the wording.
zoning
laws.
bylaws and Board of Health
Board of
regulations.
Health.
Yeah.
I would
that
add
seems
another
good.
one. I don't mind leaving Board of Health in its own thing.
He's gonna keep it in there.
No, but leaving number 3 just like it is and adding like a 4 or 5 or
Yeah, but
whatever.
it's 2 words, add in after West Boylston bylaws and.
Yeah, zoning bylaws and
Yeah, I think,
Board of
I
Health
think combining it
regulations.
would be
Yeah.
fine. No reason to.
'Cause it
I just don't want
already
anything to do with Bob's board.
says- It already says in here, it must fall into the CMR 500. Right? It already
Sudden
says
responsibility by association.
Say it again?
that.
Anita,
Does it say that?
what, oh,
The CMR,
No.
we gotta make sure that this says that it must fall under all the rules and regulations from the CMR, also from the Cannabis Commission. Does it already say that in
the
here?
commission.
Yeah.
Any definitions?
Yeah, but it can't be in the definitions. It's gotta be under the
It's
rules.
gotta be in
I would
this,
think, I thought there was a sentence I'm looking.
No, I remember we had one when we were talking about it, but
I don't know.
if it made it in.
Isn't the reference to 94G yet?
94G, it's just the first sentence.
right. Right.
Is in accordance, right, the very first
That's it,
sentence,
the
right there.
94G?
And then on section, on the scope section, the next paragraph that you were talking about,
That's what-
it talks about medical or nor to marijuana-related businesses not required to be licensed except as otherwise provided herein, where it talks about, medical marijuana treatment centers. We should put a reference to section 3.12 of the West Boylston zoning bylaws into that, because it
We
says
should.
it relates only to marijuana sellers authorized by something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just so we don't eliminate our bylaw by accident.
Yeah, we don't wanna wind ourselves in a knot here where we
Right.
conflict with each other.
Actually, is it automatically covered? Just because it's a bylaw?
Well, it's already in there separately, but you wanna let them know that there is something there, cause a lot of people don't even know it's there. A lot of the townspeople don't know that we have a medical
Oh.
bylaw already in place.
And just one last comment, because the selectmen are gonna be approving the warrant Wednesday night, currently the draft warrant includes all this language. I would recommend that we work with town council to take the actual language of the zoning bylaw out of the warrant itself and put an appropriate reference to what's being proposed and say, as on file in the town clerk's office, or as seen on the website, or something like that. That gives you more time to finalize this language.
Right, yep.
Okay, I mean, that's
Seems
beyond
like
here, though.
And then it can be.
Chris, can you take care of that?
Yeah, I think that's.
All right, thanks.
Then it can be a handout at town meeting in the final format.
I'll use this copy.
There you go.
It's gonna
We'll put that one in there.
I'm just, under definition,
Can you
Okay.
make the copies?
Yeah, I can make the
Yeah.
copy, give it to me.
the first
Nobody
sentence
can
under
read it.
definition,
Yeah,
is that a definition?
but the first section, the word marijuana,
Yeah, that's what I got a question, do you wanna make this a definition for marijuana?
I don't know,
I mean,
should
that's,
that be, and then it says,
Is
is
yours
part
place
of the Mass General law, yeah, is that, everything else seems like a definition, is that considered?
Oh,
is
well,
that
That's
sentence-
like
Okay,
a, it's like
so-
a note
so put-
about,
Fire.
it's just a note about this section, yeah.
I think
Right.
it's fine as is.
really?
Yeah,
I read it and I was like, well, where are the definitions, but you get to them, I guess. Alright, what do we have there?
so do we think we should change that to, the way it is?
No, I think we're saying that this is just,
I know.
it's
I think
just,
that
it's
that's
just
gonna be-
clarifying, it's just clarifying
Yeah,
that,
It's not really a definition, but it's.
yeah,
It's clarification.
oh, so that actually is not a definition.
it's
No,
not a
it's not a
definition, it's just that if, in this section, we're gonna say marijuana, not
What
cannabis.
Or interchangeably.
It says marijuana is used in place of cannabis, so I take that to mean that anywhere you might say
We're not
cannabis,
defining marijuana.
we're also saying, we're saying marijuana. We have chosen the word marijuana as our preferred term.
Noun. instead of cannabis
Yes.
as our noun.
Correct.
Pot.
Right, yeah. They didn't want to use pot, weed, none of that. That was not gonna be appropriate.
Yeah, that should be in the definition section.
And we're gonna get a map from CMRPC?
Oh, we should get a map.
Oh,
Who,
Do you want me to, who, is it Jeff Bragg or something like that? Is that the person?
No.
Oh, yeah?
you'll check with them about the map? We'd like to get that as soon as we can, so we can make that available on the website
yeah.
beforehand, because a lot of people have that question, and that's good. They're gonna wanna know.
And, I mean, it's essentially the zoning map just of one color. It's what, black and white or whatever.
No, we had the map, and then she came back and she put daycare centers in it. The way she did that with a pen, and she wrote it, but I don't think we ever got an updated map.
I haven't seen that, but yes,
It had the 500 feet and everything, I think.
right.
And we had, what is this, registered daycare centers?
Yes,
It,
Massachusetts license.
Yeah, well, like
I mean,
10.
as usual, people are concerned with not only how does it affect the town and my society as a whole, but how does it affect my house and my street?
Sure.
And what's gonna go on my street, so yeah, that's absolutely.
Well, your house has always been sort of a collection of,
It a collection of ragtag, friends, that's true. So they would expect probably a store on that street.
but unfortunately, the residents won't allow it, so.
on
No
Bowen
home
Street.
occupation,
Yeah, but somebody wants it on that street, right?
Residents,
It's a
it can't be in the
residence
residential area.
All right, the
Residents.
last paragraph,
Ooh,
Still have the correct.
well, I didn't
severability.
get down to it.
Very last paragraph.
This is where it talks, special permit granted shall lapse at the end of 1 year from the date of issuance. Is that allowed? I thought we had to allow 2 years.
2 years.
So I thought-
2 years after the business is,
2 years after the special permit is granted, they have 2 years to make it. If they
To make
don't,
it happen.
then they have to come back to the authority and explain
Maybe
why.
for this.
For medical marijuana, it's 5 years.
So why can't we say one?
Because I think state law is 2, and you can't go lower than 2. So that's what we ran into on the motel
Yeah.
up at, on
90
Sterling Street.
Sterling Street.
So we went back and said, well, it's not allowed use because it hasn't had a permit for over a year, because our bylaw says this, and the state came back during the court case, I think, and said, state law is 2, so
but
your
this is
bylaw
talking, this is
doesn't
about,
apply.
this is talking about commencing the business after the issuance of the special permit.
Right, but this says.
If they don't do it.
If they don't do it, they only have 1 year. State law allows, if you've got a use allowance.
You allow 2 years?
I
2
think they
years to
allow
get
2
started
years.
with it?
I think, well,
Does
that's
it-
what they do if it doesn't, so it doesn't
Does a
lapse.
shovel in the ground count as start?
Well, that's the next sentence, let's not get ahead of ourselves there, you're right on the ball though. Because the next sentence it talks about, blah, 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 is
Oh.
from grant of,
Oh, okay, yeah, except
except in good cause in the case of a permit for construction. Construction is not begun.
Yep.
That kind of thing,
yeah,
so
okay.
2 years.
So 2 years,
What are the words?
2
2 years.
and years.
No, like this one says, the special permit shall lapse within 5 years of its issuance, with no condition. It's just gonna lapse.
In the medical
Yeah.
marijuana. That we just, yeah,
Is the terminology the same here?
nope.
Like, it's just gonna lapse after a year. They go through all this, bang, gone in a year.
No, but this is for the purpose of if they haven't actually opened a business yet and they're lagging behind.
Yeah, well, I just wanna make sure the language reflects that, cause it doesn't in the medical one. It just says it's gone in 5 years.
Oh, really?
That's what the words say. I don't think that's the intent, but that's what the word,
Can we
what
get
does this one say?
clarification on this from town council, because the town we got this from said 1 year also. So I don't know, I mean, if you say the law says 2.
Well, I know we got that wording back on the motel, and that's all I remember.
Maybe, because the town we got this from, I just looked at, and it said 1 year also. Maybe they found out that.
Well, I think, and it may be a change in
Did
the
they
state
get-
interpretation of
Did
something. I
Hardwick
don't
get
know.
theirs approved?
I don't know, but, I mean, I'm just.
But I mean, I think if they go through the whole process, giving them 2 years to get up
Yeah.
and running isn't so bad.
I would
I
think
said
so.
that
And if we don't really want them to do it in the
Draft
first
it.
place, let's
Charles
not
will
allow
do
it
it.
as a
Okay, so it
use.
does say
Right.
if construction.
Get theirs approved?
So that was all.
I think 1, whatever, I mean, I think 1
You've
year
reached
is.
your maximum.
Yeah, but the only reason to have it short
Yeah.
is because we have limited number of licenses.
Okay.
I know. Oh, something else.
Hold on, he's got it.
The only reason I think to have it a short duration is because we're saying there's only 2 licenses. So if somebody's gonna buy up a
They don't
license,
wanna hold,
you don't wanna have it so
Hold
that
license
the
for
second
years.
person sitting there waiting however long it is, or the third person
Sure.
is sitting there
That's
waiting.
true.
You know,
that's true.
I mean, that's sort of I don't know, they could sell it or something, but
No,
that's the only reason I would say to have it
Non-transferable.
short, because there's a
Yeah.
limited number of
Keep
licenses.
somebody out.
Yeah, that's why somebody would do it. Maybe the first person also gets the second permit, so that he can sort of,
Hang on
Well, why
to
we
it.
leave it
You
at
know,
one,
not have any
and then
competition.
if town council, they're reviewing it now, just point it out and say, can you pay special attention to this, and if I'm wrong, and we can stick with one. That
Oh,
sounds good, but I don't, it doesn't really matter to me either way, I just was,
Yeah.
I didn't want
Having
to.
it does have all the nice words about not including such time required to pursue or wait something, something, something,
That's
something.
a
I mean,
lot.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of, the rules that would make it so it's not unreasonable. Like they got stuck in some permitting circle,
Sure.
you know, so that's why they're above a year.
Then the last sentence kind of keeps it open, the construction for,
Right,
has not begun by such date except for good cause. So I mean, that kind of makes.
That's sort of like very strict compliance, you know, there's enough language there to get around it.
but there is nothing in there about extending the permits, so there's nothing that I read in here that allowed the special permit granting authority to extend the permit that is in existence.
A special permit have a limited term duration of the applicant's ownership. Like, what would they want to extend?
Like if they didn't.
Oh, if they haven't
get-
started construction?
Right, so if they haven't started the construction and it's 9 months, or, I mean, they just go in and get the shovel in the ground and they're okay, but,
But if they can't do that, and they come to the planning board,
but it doesn't say that we can do that.
This one does have, the medical one, if a permit holder wishes to renew the special permit, an application to renew the special permit, blah, 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 is 120 days before it expires. I mean, you wanna add
then we
those
should
words?
say, then we should say a
I,
similar thing
I
here.
think it's not allowed in the Cannabis Control Commission document.
That you could renew
We are
it.
following the cannabis.
Well, this is our special permit that, only, that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Can we ask town council?
town
just to
council, yeah.
Give us input on that?
Sounds good.
That section?
Yep.
Because it says for good cause, the planning board could maybe say. it's
Okay.
Good cause, so that means you can go further, I guess, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
the other half of it is, if they know they're gonna have trouble, they could come in and say, we're gonna need another year on this, you know?
I don't know if I can imagine that happening.
They're not
People
gonna
do.
Banging down the doors.
You know who's done that 1,000 times is the,
I don't wanna hear.
the St. Pierre people.
Oh, on a subdivision, don't get me started.
But, I mean, but they've extended their permit 1,000 times, you know? I think they're into 20 years, aren't they?
Dave?
If you look under
Oh my
Mass
gosh,
General
are
Law
you
48,
They're at
Section
26
9,
years.
26
Any
years.
26.
ordinances or
Right.
bylaws shall provide that a special permit granted under this section shall lapse within a specific period of time, not more than 3 years, which shall not include such time required to pursue or wait the determination of an appeal referred to in section 17 in the grant thereof.
Not more than 3,
Yeah.
okay, so we could
nothing
say
says-
1.
So it
And
doesn't
this
say min-
is- and then basically, this 1 year is saying it's reflecting for, 40A, chapter 48, section 9. But I do have a question, if we could go back to, on page 8 on number 6.
Yep.
Where, okay, that last sentence where a special permit may be transferred, I don't think it should be transferred.
No, it's.
The last sentence?
Only with the approval of the special
I
permit
don't think
granting
it should be
authority.
transferred, I think that if somebody comes in and they went out through that work to get it all, and somebody else wants to take over, keep that establishment, they should come back. We do the same thing in the ZBA. If somebody wants, we make them go through the whole process again, and I don't. they-
If somebody sells their business to somebody else?
Yeah, it's not, the license
They
is
have
not
to
transferred.
I actually added something to the end of that, required in section 4.0 to be submitted and reviewed. So it's like a full review for the new applicant.
It's just
The-
like, okay, if somebody comes in and they want an accessory apartment or home occupation, okay? Once they stop that home occupation or that accessory apartment, they have 30 days to notify the building inspector, and that license go away. If that person wants to, if a new person wants to keep that, they have to come back to the ZBA and do all the work.
That's a little bit different, though, it's not a.
I think it should be the same way, because this is more intense.
There's so much
Wachusett
work.
Liquors wanted to sell their establishment to Holden Liquors,
Then they
Yeah,
have to
but-
stop.
But
So
no,
they-
they
well, wait a
don't.
minute, ask the
It's not a
question.
change
I'd
of
like to-
use.
Well, I'd like to hear the answer. What would they have to do with the selectmen? So it's no longer, whatever it is, Miola's Liquor Store, Femia Liquor Store wants to buy it out and take over the place. What happens?
Well, for a liquor license, they have to go to the Board of Selectmen to get permission for the transfer, and it's almost identical in application process as it is for the original.
So how does?
It's not a
how-
special permit, but a liquor store doesn't need a special permit.
Right, but there's also an agreement with, how does the selectmen's, I forget what it's called in here, but you guys, how does a host agreement, is that per the person, or is that per the site?
I think it's for.
It
It's
certainly
a
is
good
not.
question. It's been a while since I looked at the sample host agreement.
And if you sold your establishment and it was approved by whatever it has to be approved by, would the host agreement need to be
I would think so, but I
Signed
agree
or
with Anita can look at it. I would think that the host agreement's with the owner of the business. I don't know though.
Yeah, I
I
can.
can't imagine once you have one.
Once you know,
Okay, cause we'd like to then include that into the same, we wanna have the special permit be whatever you guys do for the host agreement, and whatever town council says is the right way to do it. But it should be consistent so that they don't read something somewhere and think they're gonna be able to walk right in and get it when they have to really go through the whole process.
and the other thing is, to what degree does that get reviewed at the state level as well?
I'm wondering.
How much of it does have to be reviewed? They gotta review the lineage of the business and the people involved and do criminal background checks and all that stuff of the new people.
And they have to submit a new, security
Well,
plan?
that's because we're part of.
Wouldn't they have to submit a new security plan?
Not necessarily.
Mhm.
Not if the
A lot of it
location
wouldn't
is
be
not
applicable, yeah, a lot of it would just carry over. Energy use or whatever, I mean, that would all be the same.
If they sold the business.
If they sold the business.
I'm thinking that like the 94 North Main Street, where that permit was got by somebody else, they went bankrupt and was sold. I mean, it's still, that permit had some sort of value that was sold with the property. And I'm wondering if we want,
Now you're talking apples and oranges, because on a 40B project.
no, I'm not, I'm talking about the,
Hold on a 40B project, okay, the
I'm not talking about a
comprehensive
40B.
permit goes with the property.
Right, and we're gonna find out if this goes with the property, I don't know.
But what you're saying in here is that they can just, if I own the place and you wanted to buy it, then I could just transfer it.
No.
As it is written, but we're gonna edit that,
Okay.
yes.
to not be able to, or to,
To whatever
We'll
the
check
right
with
thing
the
to
town
do is,
council.
whatever town council suggests.
well, but what do we want it to be? Do we want
Yes.
it to be so that somebody could change their name
No,
or
we-
something like that?
No,
and
you
just
cannot,
transfer it?
we cannot decide that because the entire application process and the application issuing authority is Cannabis Control Commission.
But are we
So
under
we-
that or under special permit? part?
Applicant, they
we-
do have to go to the Cannabis Control Commission.
But who's,
Then-
Okay.
A new group would come in and buy it, and they would have to ask for a new special permit.
Yes.
Well, are we talking about the special permit right now, or are we talking about the whole cannabis control thing?
Both, because whoever, someone buys it, that new owner they have to go to the CCC or the
Right.
commission, whatever it is. They, I think, are gonna have to go to the selectmen. In this bylaw, do we want them to have to come to us?
That's
like
exactly.
everybody else?
Do we
or
want to or not to?
no.
I'd say,
Well, and that's the question. I was thinking we just stay consistent with everybody else,
Right.
but you're saying you don't want them to come back.
Well-
I don't know, you just said no.
No, I agree. If it's the
Change
same
their mind.
property and the same place, then I would say, if the same permit stays in place, leave the same permit in place.
I mean, why would we have
But
to?
you don't know whether it's gonna change or not until they
It
come in and
can't if
talk
it's
to
the
you.
same permit.
No, but if they have if it's a new owner, they're gonna get a new agreement with the selectmen, they're gonna get a new agreement with the CCC, and then we say, oh yeah, your old one's still fine. Well,
They
things
make
could
a-
change.
They may change, floor plan, they may
Well,
change the.
But then that means that the permit changed. What we're saying is if the permit stays the same, the permit stays the same.
Yeah,
Any
we,
clarification from town
Town
council on
council.
that section?
Okay, yes.
I like it. Yeah,
How about yes?
yes, all in favor, you say that.
Make a motion for me to say, I'll say it.
All right,
Oh, are we gonna close this, or we can keep
I'm
this
waiting for
open?
him to ask.
motion,
About the motion.
motion to close the public hearing.
second.
Second? Second?
Got anything else, Bob?
It's closed. Is there,
No,
wait, is it,
all in favor?
wait, what about
Aye.
discussion?
Aye.
Discussion on that.
He said
Is there
all in favor.
anything, okay, fine.
Oh, no.
Is there any, speak
have a
now or
question?
hold your peace?
Oh,
Yeah.
you have a question.
Well, is there anything that we need to get established before we can close the hearing? Like, or are we allowed to change language and everything like that after the public hearing is closed? Is there
That's the
anything that
next
we
vote,
need?
right?
What?
What's the next vote?
No, the first one is, do we wanna close the hearing without getting feedback from town council? We should continue the, or we could continue the public hearing if this were a hearing where it was,
Like a site
proposal.
plan?
But I think what, this public hearing, the intent of this is to give the audience and the
Public.
people that were here
Yeah.
Chance
the
to
idea
get
of what's
feedback.
being discussed.
Yep.
I'm not really sure anybody really cares whether we give them a 1 year or a 2 year extension, but
Right.
the question is gonna go
Right.
to town council for that.
But how about the issues that were brought up by members of the public, like the zones?
Well, that's what we
These
have to,
Establishments were allowed in. Do we decide, need to decide that tonight before the hearing is
What's
closed?
our rules about bylaws?
well,
If-
it's the way it is, that's the way it is. Do we wanna change that? So we should probably discuss that.
Well, do we wanna change it?
No, my thought on that, when you take out business, industrial, and commercial and industrial zones, we are going to allow only 2 stores. We may have a couple of growers. So if you eliminate some of the zones, now, think of how many businesses are in Route 12, except the El Farma. Is there any other place they can put a store? Is there any other place they
The
can?
whole
put a
Walmart
store?
Plaza,
There's a whole
Huh?
lot of open properties.
Which one?
where Bank of America used to be.
Bank, right. All the
Except they're
Clemson,
driving,
Walmart,
but-
Except for
Behind the Bank of America,
And
there
then
is a church.
there was, what
Hold on.
about checkerboard?
Oh, that's true. There is that church right there.
Checkerboard, behind the checkerboard, there is a, what is it, jungle gym or jingle gym?
It's ultimate obstacles.
Is ultimate obstacles?
That's
Does
not
that
every
have a
time.
500-foot zone? Ultimate obstacles?
Yeah,
That's
that's
where
for
kids
kids.
are.
That's for kids.
There are tons of kids.
You want to
there.
sell
I don't
marijuana
know.
with the kids?
I
It's
didn't-
not a
There
playground.
was no map on the website,
No.
I couldn't see a map of
Route
these
12
areas.
is the Route 12 is the business zone, you know it.
I know it, but I didn't know
So
what
in
was
Shrewsbury
triggering the
Street,
kids.
take the Shrewsbury Street, how many places we have?
Is
Nothing.
that school still there?
Which one?
No, I think
Next
there's,
to school's gone.
I think
Is
there's-
it? Yeah, there was a school over there.
there's like 9 schools in that crazy
Yeah.
building.
And there's a church
That's there.
over in,
Special-
is the
special
church
ed
still
school is
in the Salter School?
Salter School, you cannot put it in,
Why?
because
Is-
of the college.
Did
Oh,
we
it was
decide?
college.
No,
Yeah.
we
it
decided
was-
to not,
Wachusett Plaza, you cannot put it.
No, I
No,
thought it
hang
was
on,
1 to
hang
12.
on.
I thought it was grades 1 to 12.
we,
But
uh,
I
think
we
to
Kids
struck,
specify that?
Karate goes, kids goes to
Okay.
karate.
kids
I'm
go
fine.
everywhere, so
Yes, you
Oh,
cannot
it
put it on
does.
that.
It does
You
specify
have it
any grades 1 through
specified.
12.
1 through 12.
So
Yeah,
that, right, so that's why
kids-
it would be really helpful to have those little circles on there, cause I,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah, dance, karate,
Well, there's a karate place.
Huh?
There's the karate place in there.
there
Which
is,
is
you know,
kids.
only a handful of
Right.
places.
school?
Private school, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you
And
can't,
they
Okay.
talk, they talk,
you
So-
can't make it so you exclude every single place in town, say, yeah, we'll allow it, and then exclude all
And then
these
exclude
places.
every place.
Because,
Right.
you
well,
know,
no,
they cannot put
there's
it
the
by
2
the
rules.
state
There's the
law.
zoning rule and then there's the other near schools, near those rules.
Right.
and
So
so
they
we-
overlap a little.
So
and
the- there
having
are
the map
poten-
is what's needed, so we can kinda get an idea that there's a whole bunch of these little circles going on here.
So are you, so is anyone saying that we can't change the zones on this chart?
No, I would leave it as.
No,
such.
Well,
What's
the only
in
one-
front of,
We should.
what we're talking about right now is whether we can close the hearing or not and still do this work.
That's correct.
So is that possible if we close the hearing?
I think we need to talk about it in an open meeting, an open hearing, because this is
Okay.
what,
Do we-
this is what it's here for.
Okay, so we'll continue this to some date?
Can we,
In other
I was
words-
gonna say, do we have time to do that
Why can't
before?
we just do it now? I mean,
Good.
I mean,
Because
Do it
some
now.
of us have to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I
and-
know.
Yeah, You can stay up till
It's-
midnight and
because
still
it's-
go to work, I
The whole
found.
point was to discuss this in front of the public. They've all left.
Right.
Here is a board member.
Well, it's being broadcast. I don't know if that counts.
I'm just saying.
I think we should leave it the way it is. And
I
think
agree.
It can be amended in town meeting if people feel that strongly about it.
That's correct.
I'm opposed to anything that requires amendment in town meeting because it never works.
It's very difficult.
No, I,
It's confusing and it's
And there's
But is there a
Well,
reason to
I
change?
I don't think we should change it. I think we should leave it as it
Alright,
is.
I think we
well,
should leave
okay,
it at- yeah.
so that's why we
Which
can
thing?
come to consensus.
I
don't see
think, I
any-
think these zones are, I think the way,
Oh, the
what we
zoning,
put,
yeah.
that, the zoning is fine. I don't wanna
So you're okay
limit
with
the
the zoning, I'm
districts
sure you are,
Oh,
you
I'm
are.
any further
You
than
was
they're
zoning,
already
yeah.
limited here.
Yes.
So you want me
So-
to make a motion?
No, I'm just.
No, we don't have to, we
Um,
don't have to make a motion to change anything, all it is the public hearing. So the only
whether we
question I
close the
had
public
was
hearing.
the idea of the use up on the limited
So
industrial
the only
area.
reason, you
No, I say
know,
leave that.
But that's for growers, so that's fine.
so I'm saying no to change the table. The
Right.
only reason is, you know, if you eliminate either business or commercial industrial or industrial, so any one of those, already, you know, we don't have whole lot of potential suitable places that covers, you know, that eliminates all the playgrounds, churches, all those things. That left only a handful of, and, you know, few places.
Yeah.
If you eliminate that, we have no place.
Right.
So there is no reason to
Right.
have any, there is no reason for us to allow these things and then put all the restrictions.
You basically wanted to eliminate, to not allow them in residential zones.
Yeah, single
Right.
residential.
And
That's
allow,
perfect.
and allow them in all the other
Yeah,
zones.
yeah.
Yep,
And nobody's gonna put their retail establishment on Hartwell Street.
right.
If they do, they do.
If they do, they do, but
There is,
nobody's gonna put it there.
yeah, there is nothing. I would think, you know, Shrewsbury Street, there is few.
So we've discussed it, so that's fine, 'cause
discussed
it. Yeah.
you're gonna be ready at town meeting, cause the question is gonna be coming up, so somebody's gonna stand up.
We discussed it.
The planning board
Justify it.
clerk is.
The planning board.
The planning board clerk will.
So what
Address
else,
that,
the
sure.
other two facilities, so that's two retail facilities, so we
Right.
could have two retails and a whole batch of growers and
You could.
transporters and testers,
We could.
okay? And that's all okay, cause that's what it says?
Yep.
And there's a regular, whatever it is, 6.25% sales tax on any business, any retail stuff. Then there's an additional 3% from the
Comes to
state.
town. Yeah, it comes to the
And
town.
then, no, 3% to the state, isn't
state.
there?
It's 3%.
And then they just.
And then there's another
distribute it.
optional amount to the town for
Say,
improvements or whatever
Well,
services,
no, for cost of,
cost of.
Cost of
Increased
cost.
operation.
I think that will be negotiated by the Board of Selectmen.
right.
Yes, yep, so I'm just trying to get the numbers right, we didn't change any of
Now,
that.
there's a warrant article about the 3%
sales
sales tax,
Yes.
Yes,
to either make it 3% or nothing.
it's written as 3%, the selectmen asked it to be the max.
Is there up to or something like that so that it's,
Written as 3%, it could be, I'm
So
sure the
they're ready.
moderator would entertain a motion to reduce it if he wanted to.
Not sure-
I don't
not
wanna
sure-
reduce
not
it, I
sure
just
why-
want them to have
You
the
can-
Not
freedom
sure
to.
why anybody would reduce
You
it.
cannot go
Sure.
more than 3%.
3% is the maximum, so that.
I think
so
3%
that
is a
should fly.
maximum is what
Yeah, let's keep
it should
moving.
say.
I'm just going through the people's comments to try to
So
get
those are-
all of them.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that we can solve all this. 500-foot offset compared to 1,000-foot offset?
Yeah, 1,000 feet would,
Discussed this.
would basically not allow it
So you couldn't have it
any,
anywhere.
any sensible place in town, which it wouldn't pass muster with the state.
Well, limited industrial would pass.
Yeah.
Somebody's gotta be the devil's advocate here, so.
I'm usually devil's advocate. You took my job?
I did, well, it's the
Okay.
seat.
Yes, it's the seat, which makes it
All
that
right,
way.
so, that might come up at town meeting and
Yeah.
someone's gonna be ready to address it, but I think having the map is gonna be huge. That'll
Yep.
really help.
Needs to go really big, man.
And we're gonna get a definition for third-party transporter for that question.
No, I looked that up. Did you look that up?
If you get it, send it to me.
It's just on their website. Just look up third-party transporter, and there's a Cannabis Control Commission's definition of, or article about it.
Done.
All right.
Do DOS computers allow you to get the internet?
Maybe not.
Unix, only Unix.
All right, and do we wanna get feedback from the police before this public hearing? I mean, it's not a public hearing thing, but before town meeting,
Yeah.
someone should talk to the police chief and say, get some feedback from him.
What exactly are you looking for feedback, because he's gonna be very reluctant. Police chiefs are being advised to be very cautious about statements they make regarding marijuana
Yep.
facilities. So what specifically, what types of feedback are you looking for him to provide?
Just some kind of guidance so that he doesn't blow it out of the water at town meeting. If he's got some
The
serious
criteria-
issues,
The evaluating the?
Well, I
Just
think more
review.
just
I guess it's just we've reviewed.
that he's reviewed it and it is in as compliant as it can be or something like that? Or does he have, if he's got real issues, then I'd rather hear it before than in front of town meeting.
He's made a very basic statement that he did not have issues with the draft bylaw.
It's, okay,
That's
so
all
we
bad.
got, we have something from
So we-
him. So
yeah,
that- Cause one of the,
that was one of the questions.
one of the questions we got,
Yeah.
and that wasn't answered that way.
Yep.
Justification for the amount, that's. Okay, and limiting the exposure to children, someone's gonna be able to say that's the 500 foot, so we're good.
Sure. And the no signs and the,
Right.
Right, okay, I think that was it. Good, so let's move to
ooh,
vote.
fancy.
From your phone?
What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Maybe you
Nothing,
should
no, he was using it.
if you get these,
See if I can get the game.
maybe you
Okay.
should have them situated in 3 or 4 different places, like out in the lobby when people are coming in so that they can
Well,
look
it
at
should
it.
be on a handout.
I understand, but sometimes the handout, is so small, if it's in bigger, like, a big thing.
Yeah, and we can
easel,
use, and we
I
can,
think everybody should
we could
get
actually put one in here
e-size.
for future use, even though it's got the zoning stuff on it, sometimes it's nice
Do
to
you
have.
think
it
we'll
zoning
get
on.
quorum?
Probably not.
Quorum.
At town meeting?
Yeah.
Well,
You can't get,
this
you
I
can't
think-
get.
will guarantee a
I
quorum.
think
Right,
so.
yeah, I think this one will.
Only
be-
because of this question.
There's a motion, there's a motion,
So you think we
there's a
should?
motion that's been on the floor and seconded.
Hold on,
Oh,
I'm taking minutes poorly.
Oh,
Who made the motion, Raj?
Raj did.
Yep, I second.
Sarah seconded.
Second.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I don't know.
All, any nays?
No, I'll abstain. I don't know.
Abstain?
It's to close the public hearing.
I know, I don't know if we should or shouldn't. I don't know if there's something we're missing.
Okay.
You don't need me. We got
You're
4.
proving that wishy-washy thing.
No, I mean, is there something that we're supposed to get before we close the public hearing? We don't know,
I
so I'm
think
just
we
gonna
do.
abstain and we're just done.
Right.
You got 4 and you're out.
You can be recorded as abstaining.
You guys have about, to ask town council about, should you have answers to that before you close the public hearing? I'm just,
I think the issue is that we're asking so that everything is legal, and the response, we wanna make it legal, is why we're asking town council for it. So town council will direct us to make things
Legal,
legal.
right.
So if we say we wanna do 75 years, and it's not legal, it can be corrected because it
Right.
needs to be legal.
There won't be discussion about that. It will just be the legalization of the language.
Alright, so,
Thank you all.
Sarah, next one?
I don't think I waffled on that. I think I didn't wanna
Waffles.
close the public hearing.
You're serving waffles?
Man.
With bacon, with
Waffle
bacon.
man. Yeah.
Sarah,
Yeah.
your motion?
What motion?
To leave?
Oh! Moved.
Motion to
We,
Motion to adjourn.
we already did that.
Yeah, didn't we just close
the
it?
public hearing.
That's
Oh,
it.
we have to,
We
okay.
have to
Motion to
the
adjourn.
meeting.
Second.
All in fa-
I'm not gonna abstain from this
You
one.
too.
all,
I'm not gonna be abstaining for this.
No, I'm not gonna abstain from this one.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What's this?
One vote, and all of a sudden it's a
Not
weird
mine.
thing.
Yeah, it is.
Is this yours, Raj?
Mine.